Chapter 641, Hidden Dragon Village. Chen Qingqing suddenly suffered such a heavy injury, both his qi and spirit were weakened for a moment. Fortunately, Zhang Han set up two arrays and helped him maintain consciousness. Otherwise, Chen Qingqing would lose consciousness because of the great pain, and then he would be in danger. Even so, Chen Qingqing could feel his body feel as if it was exploding. He could feel his danshan and meridians now, and his organs were also weakened at the same time. The warlord of Chan clan felt his heart in his mouth. It was hard to imagine his feeling. Even Gai Xingkong, Wang Zanping and Wang Zanzong were very nervous. A man without his danshan would still live as a cripple, but Chen Qingqing could only live for a few minutes without both his danshan and meridians. Chen Qingqing's breath was weakening, but Zhang Han didn't help him. The warlord of Chan clan mouth gradually opened, and even his fists were tightened involuntarily. He was so nervous. Can Chen Qingqing survive when his breath disappears? Now Chen Qingqing was dying. It was going to be too late if Zhang Han didn't help him. But Zhang Han stood still. He was still waiting for something. What are you waiting for? The warlord of Chan clan felt so depressed. Bang! Under the other's nervous gaze, Chen Qingqing breathed his last breath and his qi gradually dissipated. Dong, dong, dong. They clearly felt that Chen Qingqing's heart had stopped beating. If Zhang Han turned around and left, Chen Qingqing would immediately fall to the ground. This failed. Gai Xingkong shivered. If Emperor King died, the consequences would be too great, and the warlord of Chan clan would kill Zhang Han at any cost. When they were worrying about it, swish, Zhang Han moved. Under the other's gaze, Zhang Han's right hand clenched. Clatter, 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 clatter. The dozens of crystal stones burst into pieces and turned into a wisp of strong spiritual qi, which began spinning around Chen Qingqing like a storm. It was very strange that there were star-like glimmering points in this spiritual qi storm, which were linked to each other to form an array. All the spiritual qi in this treasure land, even within 10 miles around Mount Redleaf, had become a superstorm, converging here. This amazing scene stunned everyone here, including the warlord of Chan clan. But what was more shocking was still to come. Buzz! Zhang Han flashed to Chen Qingqing's back, and there were black lights bursting out of his eyes. He looked like a demon, and suddenly pressed his right hand onto Chen Qingqing's head. At a distance of 10 centimeters, the palm stopped, but a plume of black air was injected into Chen Qingqing's head from Zhang Han's palm. It seemed as if Zhang Han was filling Chen Qingqing's brain with knowledge in this way. The Lord of Underworld suppresses all kinds of evils. Everyone heard Zhang Han's voice without seeing his lips moving. His words, with the ancient and desolate atmosphere and the power of curse, began to torture Chen Qingqing's body. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Chen Qingqing's body withered at a visible speed, and he turned into a 100-year-old man after only 3 seconds. The others were shocked. What are you doing, teaching him or killing him? But the next moment, they saw Zhang Han open his mouth and say calmly, all let drought demonic dragon, gather. A strong energy forced into Chen Qingqing's body to form new meridians. The new meridians lit up, 1 cycle, 2 cycles. When it came to the 3rd circle, Chen Qingqing had recovered some consciousness and started to control the circulation of a few spiritual forces in his body. When it came to the 4th circle, buzz, the azure dragon mark on Chen Qingqing's chest and back suddenly brightened, and a strong force of king dragon blood swept in all directions. After the 5th circles, bang, bang, the danshan in Chen Qingqing's body was filled and reshaped by the power of blood. Chen Qingqing's danshan used to be only 5 inches, but now it had directly expanded to 7 inches. After the 6th circles, clatter, all the spiritual qi in the sky and the earth were absorbed by Chen Qingqing at a speed visible to the naked eyes. His body seemed to be bottomless. The warlord of Chan clan and Gai Xingkong were already stunned. The 7th circle, Chen Qingqing's body returned to its original shape, and his qi gradually rose. Obvious strength, Inward strength, peak strength, chi strength master. Crack. They heard a crisp sound. Shan Chenking reached the stage of martial arts Grand Master. Early stage, middle stage, last stage and finally the peak stage. All of this, like a cycle, was happening during the time when Shan Chenking learned the all-eight drought demonic dragon. He soon advanced from obvious strength to the Grand Master peak stage. The eighth circle. The power of blood around Shan Chenking's body was absorbed by him. Even the light of azure dragon tattoo on his body passed through his clothes, which was so dazzling at this moment. Although there was no wind, Shan Chenking's hair and clothes were fluttering. Suddenly, when it came to the ninth circle, boom! A dull beating of the heart came from all directions. Shan Chenking's dazzling tattoo began to glow a little black. At the same time, Shan Chenking's blood power was constantly improving. The warlord of Chan clan felt it the most clearly, and he was astonished at that strong blood power. 10%, 20%, 30% and 40%. There was silence around, the light of the tattoo faded, and Shan Chenking calmed down. When he finished the new round of close-door cultivation to strengthen his meridians, he would be at God state strong. Okay. Zhang Han sighed with relief. Zhang Han was the most attentive and tired person. He did his best for Shan Chenking's cultivation method. Let's leave. Don't disturb him, he is expected to break through and awaken in 2 or 3 days. Zhang Han looked at Shan Chenking's back and suddenly smiled. I'm afraid I can't defeat him after he finishes this round of cultivation. Originally, Zhang Han was at a disadvantage when they fought each other. Now Shan Chenking had learned the method taught by Zhang Han and could use 40% of his blood power, while before he could only use 20%. With the help of his new 7 inches Danshan, his strength had increased by more than 10 times. Realizing all this, the warlord of Chan clan was nearly moved to tears. He didn't even know what to say, so he walked out of the cave in silence with Gai Xingkong and others, who also had complex feelings. Shan Chenking was left behind. When they left the cave and returned to the stone house, the warlord of Chan clan sighed softly, looked at Zhang Han with admiration and bowed down to salute him. Zhang Han, thank you for all this. I once received the favor of Jiang Shenwang, now the Chen family receives your favor again. Before he had finished speaking, Zhang Han reached out his hand and helped up the warlord of Chan clan, laughing. Elder Chen, you are welcome. How can I treat Chenking badly given his relationship with me? Ha ha ha, that's right. After all, the warlord of Chan clan experienced a lot, and soon recovered his mood. Then he said with a smile, it's the blessing of Chenking to have you as his eldest brother, and it's also the blessing of my Chen family. I'm sure that you will be the new immortal king of this generation and the second immortal king of Heavenly Knights sect within 10 years. Your achievements will surpass your father and even your grandfather. In normal times, his words would certainly shock Gai Xingkong, Wang Zanping and Wang Zanzong. Because this was a super high evaluation from the warlord of Chan clan. But now, not only were they not shocked, but they kept calm and felt that Zhang Han deserved it. Because Zhang Han had conquered their doubts and thoroughly convinced them with his strength. Even Gai Xingkong's eyes were shining. After hesitating for a while, he coughed softly and said, Han, do you have any inheritance of spear methods? Spear methods. Zhang Han looked at Gai Xingkong and sighed. Gai Xingkong also sighed. What a pity. He thought Zhang Han didn't inherit any spear methods, but, I know a lot of methods, but I don't know which one you want. Huh? Gai Xingkong's eyes lit up. They went out, sat down on the chairs in front of the stone house, and saw Meng Meng and Ziyan playing on the lawn not far away. Zhang Han heard Meng Meng murmuring, Big Hai Hai and Little Hai Hai are not here, I want to play with them. Zhang Han smiled, his eyes were shining, and he said a few words to Gai Xingkong. Gai Xingkong moved quickly to the east cliff and jumped down. Of course, he was not suicidal. In a short time, he felt that there was a fierce chi of dragon tiger spear at the foot of the 100-meter cliff. Zhang Han stood up and walked to Meng Meng. The warlord of Chan clan and two elders of the Wang family sat at the table and drank the special tea served by the warlord of Chan clan. Looking at Zhang Han's back, the warlord of Chan clan could not help but sigh. In my understanding, Chenking's king dragon blood is the top blood in the martial arts world. Zhang Han regards it as ordinary blood. I can't imagine how powerful the inheritance he received from Han Yang Immortal is, but I can imagine he will grow up to be a great cultivator. That's what we think since he taught us the 100 formation image. Wang Zanping shook his head slightly. All that drought demonic dragon. Chen family war god's eyes narrowed slightly as he murmured softly, I felt the incredible and strong atmosphere, which was far-fetched. The future of Chenking is limitless, but it's not what I gave him. I used to be proud of my cultivating method, but it turned out to be a crooked way. There are so many talents now, and obviously, Zhang Han is the best among them. The warlord of Chan clan sighed frequently today. Although he was at the God Realm peak stage, considering his age and what Zhang Han did, he had a feeling that he was surpassed by the young generation. Look, they have grown to the point where they can talk with me equally, or even surpass me in knowledge. It's horrible. Zhang Han ignored their discussion. He went straight to the lawn and saw Meng Meng running to him. Papa, when shall we go back to Hong Kong? I miss Big Hi Hi and Little Hi Hi. They must miss me too. Yes. Xian also said. Meng Meng is about to start school in a week, and Zif is still helping me to arrange the next stage of work. Maybe it will be decided in these 2 days, and I will be busy then, leaving you alone at home. Will you feel lonely? I'm lonely. What can I do? Zhang Han took Xian's hand and said with a smile, will you stay at home with me? Oh, you are stupid. You should accompany me. Xian rolled her eyes at Zhang Han. Ha ha ha, yes. Zhang Han burst out laughing. It seemed that he was in a good mood. Papa, why don't you accompany Meng Meng? I don't like you. Meng Meng pouted. Of course I'll accompany both of you. Zhang Han hurriedly touched Meng Meng's head, and said, we'll go back in 3 days. Would you like to go to the children's park and have some fun in the remaining 2 days? Okay, nice. How could Meng Meng really be angry with her papa, hearing that they were going out to play? Meng Meng soon began to laugh. They played for a while on this side of the grass. Zhang Han checked the time. It was already 10 o'clock and it would take more than 1 hour to get back to the Chen family. Thinking about it, Zhang Han said, let's go back, have lunch and go to another place. Whoosh. The warlord of Chan clan immediately stood up and walked quickly towards them. You're going back? I asked Wang to prepare the roast rabbit. Won't you stay for lunch? No, thank you. We'll go back to the urban area for lunch and go to another place in the afternoon. Zhang Han replied. Where are you going? The warlord of Chan clan subconsciously asked. The countryside. Zhang Han smiled. The countryside? Zhang Li's asked. Brother, are we going there? Yes. Zhang Han nodded. The others were all confused. They all chose to follow Zhang Han in leaving, and the warlord of Chan clan sent them to the foot of the mountain. After watching their motorcade leave, the warlord of Chan clan slowly turned around and looked at the direction of the strong fluctuation of Dragon Tiger Spear. He smiled lightly. I'll go to play with you. The warlord of Chan clan wanted to get back his confidence in Gaik Singkong, who was practicing spear methods happily, would be defeated. The departing people returned to Shangjing City and had lunch in a specialty restaurant known to Zhang Han. Then they went to what Zhang Han called the countryside using 2 cars. The Wang family members didn't follow them. Zhang Han drove by himself, with Xian and Meng Meng. Zhao Feng drove a car behind him, with instructor Liu, Xiong and Zhang Li. They drove all the way to the north, and soon left the city. After driving on the highway for half an hour, Zhang Han turned to a mountain road to the right. Zhao Feng's ears moved slightly. Then he looked at Zhang Li and said with a smile, Lily, don't play with your cell phone. I'll tell you something. Well, what's up? Zhang Li put down her mobile phone and asked. Both Instructor Liu and Ziyong looked at Zhao Feng curiously, wondering what he was going to say. "It's my master's question, that." Zhao Feng thought for a moment and said, "Now you have some understanding of the martial arts world. Martial artists are very powerful people. They can freely shuttle between the heaven and the earth, just like my master, who is an immortal." "I know, of course my brother is good." Zhang Li nodded. "Do you want to be a martial artist or a heroine?" Zhao Feng asked again. "Heroine?" Zhang Li was stunned. "Yes." Instructor Liu said with a smile, "How comfortable it is to be a queen and find two handsome young men to massage your feet. A dog's mouth emits no ivory." Zhang Li stared at Instructor Liu and then asked Zhao Feng, "Is this my brother's question?" "Yes." Zhao Feng said with a smile, "I'm serious. Even if you are not talented, you can become a very powerful martial artist with your brother's help." "Eh? Why does it sound like you're making fun of me?" Zhang Li snorted, "I don't have much interest in it now. It's boring to fight and kill. Let's wait until I've had enough fun." Zhang Li's words amused Ziyong and others. If those people in the martial arts world heard Zhang Li's words, they would beat their breasts and cry in anguish. This chance, which was not valued by Zhang Li, was the dream of thousands of martial artists. A village appeared in front of the car while they were chatting and laughing. On the east side of the village was a small mountain, on which there were many trees. On the right side was a piece of cultivated land, and they could see many paddy and crop fields. It was not March yet, and the fields were not alive. The village looked very large with many tile houses. There were many children in cotton-padded clothes playing with tops by the edge of the road. Pa, pa, pa. The sound came from afar, with a special charm. It could be seen that the development of the village was very good. When Zhang Han's two cars entered the village, they saw an Audi A6L, a Toyota Highlander and an old Jetta leaving the village. The prices of the three cars were different, but they did the same thing when they saw the two cars coming. On this relatively narrow road, they collectively drove to the right edge. "There are two Rolls-Royces coming from the opposite side. If I scrape them, I will lose a lot of money." Under their astonished gaze, the two luxury cars drove past them, plunged straight into the village and drove to the south edge. "Is this the destination? What are we doing here?" Ziyan in the back seat looked up and asked, "I came here to pick up something my dad left behind." Zhang Han replied. Of course, Zhang Han didn't forget what had happened before. The importance of a place marked on the map leading to a secret place could be estimated by seeing that Wind Snow School specifically sent large groups of people to search. Zhang Han thought about it and finally thought there was only one possible place. That was the village where his parents secretly brought Zhang Han and Zhang Li to visit several times in their childhood. Moreover, the name of the village, in Zhang Han's eyes, was also very interesting. Because its name was Hidden Dragon Village. Hidden Dragon? Is there anything hidden here? Zhang Han now realized that his father had left behind a lot of clues. The mysterious veil was waiting for him to uncover it by hand. Why didn't you tell me earlier about the young master of Heavenly Knights sect? Zhang Han looked at the tile house in front of him and smiled softly. Chapter 642, Little Secret. The tiled house on the edge of Hidden Dragon Village seemed to be in disrepair. There was a small yard in front of the house, with a red brick pavement. There were many weeds growing between the cracks of the bricks, which made the yard even more desolate. The iron door was rusty, and the nearby house was also abandoned, which looked like this one. Zhang Han was very familiar with the layout of these two houses. The kitchen was near the door, and there were big bedrooms to the left and right sides. There was no living room and the TV was placed in the bedroom. Although it had been a long time, Zhang Han still remembered that the TV seemed to be only 20 inches. Bang, bang, bang. All the others opened their door and stepped out of the car. Papa, where is it? Meng Meng blinked her big bright eyes and looks around curiously. In the memory of the little princess, she had never been to such a place before. After taking a few looks at the village, Meng Meng was soon attracted by a group of children tens of meters away. The clothes they were wearing were quite new, except for a little girl who was clean. Everyone else was a little dirty. It seemed that these boys were very naughty. They didn't know what a Rolls-Royce was, so they all focused on the strangers. Here is. When Zhang Han was about to answer, Zhang Li, who walked towards him from behind, took over the topic and said with a smile, "This is the place where your father and I spent our holidays as children." Huh? Meng Meng was slightly stunned. A vacation, right here? There is no amusement park. Before Meng Meng asked, Zhang Li took the initiative to say, "It's different from traveling to other cities. It's mainly about experiencing the lifestyle of the countryside." "Well, I see, Aunt Lili." Meng Meng replied vaguely, and then turned her gaze to the children playing with the top not far to the right. "They are having fun." Zhang Han was recalling his childhood while observing the houses. Then he found the houses filled with dust after scanning them with his soul sense. The contents of each house were also clear at a glance, including some of their photos and belongings. A relatively large picture was displayed at the top of the bedroom closet. There were 5 people in the picture, including Zhang Han, Zhang Li, Zhang Wenyu, Song Jiali, and a man with grey hair and heavy eyebrows who looked old but heroic. Zhang Li remembered his name. "It's weird, how come there is no one living in Elder Mu's house nearby? They may have moved away." Zhang Han replied casually, "That's impossible, Elder Mu had no children, where can he go alone? He said before that he would spend the rest of his life here." Zhang Li curled her lips. "Who is Elder Mu?" Ziyan asked curiously. "He was a neighbor." Zhang Li smiled and replied, "Elder Mu is very good and handsome. He must have been a good-looking man when he was young. Every time we came here for a holiday, he would greet us. He was very kind and my father would play Go with him for a long time every time we came here. I don't remember the other details clearly. I brought him a gift this time, but I didn't expect that he has moved away." "Oh, I see. Shall we go in and have a look?" Ziyan looked at Zhang Han again and asked. "No, just leave it as it is." Zhang Han slightly shook his head. In front of him was the place where he had lived for months. He had been here 3 times, every time during the summer and winter holidays, and every time they would stay here for 2 months, altogether for 6 months. "We're going to another place, it's a 10-minute walk from here." Zhang Han looked at a small path on the side of the street. In front of a field to the right, there was a relatively small lake. There were many memories from his childhood. At the same time, Zhang Han firmly believed that what the people from Wind Snow School were looking for was hidden there. Xuyong, Instructor Liu and Zhao Feng stayed to watch the car, and the others all walked to the field path. At the edge of the field, they saw a white-haired man in his 60s on a bicycle approaching them slowly. Seeing the 2 cars parked at the gate, he was slightly shocked and looked at Zhang Han. "Who are you?" Zhang Han saw the old man and smiled. "Elder village head. We come back to have a look. My father is Zhang Wenyu." "Ah, you are old Zhang's son?" It took the old man some time to recall who was Zhang Wenyu. Then he asked, "You haven't come back for many years?" "Yes." Zhang Han nodded. "You are in good health, Elder village head?" "No, not so good." The old man said while controlling his bicycle, "My stomach is not good. I can't eat too much. By the way, Elder village head." Zhang Li suddenly jumped out, smiled and asked, "When did Elder Mu move?" "Mu?" The old man stroked his beard and sighed suddenly. Zhang Li mistakenly thought that Elder Mu next door to them had passed away, and the joy in her eyes gradually dissipated. However, after touching his beard, the old man said with a smile, "After you left here the last time, he left the next day. Mu is a good man and he helped the villagers to do a lot of farm work. His and your house were built by himself. It's interesting that he didn't live in our village very much, but he would come back before you came here each time. It was like an appointment. Ah, so many years have passed, and your 2 little kids have grown up too. How time flies." "Huh?" Zhang Han was surprised. It's the first time he knew about these things. When he came before as a child, he never asked where their house came from, and he didn't care about Elder Mu's identity, either. But after hearing this news, Zhang Han wondered whether this Elder Mu was also his father's man. Wow! Did you come back with such good cars? Are they Rolls-Royce worth millions? The old man carefully stared at the two cars in front of him and said, "You are really promising. You are related to Hidden Dragon Village, and I'm proud of you. It's very good." The old man smiled and applauded Zhang Han. From his clear eyes, Zhang Han could see that kind of simple blessing. Then the village head noticed Meng Meng standing behind Zhang Han's legs. Suddenly, he smiled and asked, "What a delicate girl. Whose child is she?" "My daughter, isn't she beautiful?" Zhang Han laughed and touched Meng Meng's little head. "This is the elder village head. You can call him Grandpa." Hello, Grand Village Head. My name is Meng Meng." Meng Meng waved her hand. "So lovely." The aged man laughed and took out a small bag of milk candy from his pocket. "Have some candy." "Huh?" Meng Meng hesitated and looked up at Xian. She knew very well that Mama seldom permitted her to eat such sweet candy. "Take it." "Well, what should you say when you receive a present?" Xian smiled and said to Meng Meng, "Well, thank you, Grandpa." Meng Meng took the candy and thanked the village head happily. "You are welcome." The aged man grinned. Meng Meng took the candy, tore the wrapper off with her small hand, ate it happily, and mumbled, "Garbage can't be thrown on the ground." Meng Meng's clear eyes turned twice, and finally they were fixed on Zhang Han's trouser pocket. Meng Meng took the wrapper in her little hand and stuffed it directly in. Zhang Han didn't know whether to cry or to laugh. He thought of the picture when Meng Meng was crying and cleaning her face on Xian's clothes. "Are you going to the Sishui Lake?" The old man looked at the direction over there, shook his head and sighed. Originally, a concrete road was planned to be built, which led to the Sishui Lake, and it would take you only 3 to 5 minutes to get there by car. But, let's stop talking about it. Go and have fun there. I'm going back to prepare for lunch. Would you like to have a drink with me when you return? Elder Village Head, can you still drink at your age? Zhang Han said with a smile. The Elder Village Head was a little unhappy. I can drink at least 250 grams of wine now. Ha ha, okay, let's go sightseeing first. Zhang Han nodded his head. After saying goodbye, he looked at the back of the aged village head, and then turned his gaze to Zhao Feng. Zhang Han's lips moved slightly as he said a few words. Zhao Feng nodded and followed the aged village head to his house nearby with Ziyong. A bank card suddenly appeared in Zhao Feng's hand. In Zhang Han's opinion, the aged village head was very nice, who had devoted himself to the villagers. Seeing that he was a little depressed just now, Zhang Han thought it was simple to build a road or something, so he decided to help the aged man. Sometimes, what Zhang Han threw out casually would be a great opportunity for others. Now many things seemed so simple for him. Even if he didn't understand it, there would be many people competing to help him. Brother, the ice hasn't melted yet, what are we going there for? Zhang Li couldn't help asking Zhang Han while walking on the field path. Let's take a look there and take what our father left us. Zhang Han replied. What did father leave us? Zhang Li was even more curious about it. I don't know, but it should be a good thing. Zhang Han replied. Zhang Li gave up asking and began to talk with Xian. Meng Meng was still happily enjoying her milk candy and had no time to talk, so she held Papa and Mama's hands while walking forward. Their speed was relatively slow, so they walked for about 20 minutes and saw the lake from a distance. The water was still frozen. If it was summer, it would be sparkling. There were nothing interesting to look at here. On the right side of the small lake, there was a stone platform extending more than 10 meters inward. On the stone platform was a pavilion, with some chairs in it for people to fish. This was something that existed before. The pavilion looked ancient and had a bit of charm. But different from before, There were 3 newly built houses on the left side with smoke curling up above their roofs. In addition, there were many small trees on the lake. It seemed that the small lake had been used to raise fish. Zhang Han went straight to the pavilion, looked at the ice, and said with some emotion, "It was here that my father and I counted ducks. Why didn't I count them?" Zhang Li was surprised. "Well, perhaps you were more obedient than me." Zhang Han's words amused Xian. It was true that when a girl was a child, she would be relatively more obedient than a boy. "Brother, what are you looking for?" Zhang Li looked around and said, "There's nothing here. Of course you don't know, that's a secret between our father and I." Zhang Han said with a smile. HMPH. Zhang Li was depressed. "You both have secrets. I will ask him carefully when he returns." "Well, he must be punished." Zhang Han said to support her. "Ha ha, you two are so funny." Xian covered her mouth and laughed. "Can you stop crying when you get your father back? What is that?" Meng Meng finished eating the milk candy, looked up and muttered to Zhang Han. Zhang Han slightly narrowed his eyes, and waved to Xian and Zhang Li to leave, which he rarely did. "You go first, then turn around and don't peek." "Why?" Xian was surprised. "What is he going to do? Why can't I witness it?" Then Xian realized that Zhang Han wanted to share a secret with Meng Meng. Xian and Zhang Li were amused and soon left the pavilion. "Papa, what are we going to do?" Meng Meng raised her head and asked curiously. "Do you want to play a very interesting game?" Zhang Han smiled softly. "Yes." When Meng Meng heard this, she was happy and nodded repeatedly. "Wait for me." Zhang Han held Meng Meng in his arms and went to the southeast of the pavilion. Then he turned Meng Meng upside down, grabbed her ankles and slowly set her down. "Do you see a heart-shaped pattern?" Zhang Han said. "Well, no, I feel a little dizzy." Looking down made Meng Meng a little uncomfortable. Zhang Han activated his spiritual force. Then a gentle breeze blew away the thick layer of ash covering the stone in front of Meng Meng, showing a heart-shaped light blue mark. It was about the size of an adult's palm, and it was also upside down. From the perspective of Meng Meng, it was just in the shape of heart. "Yes, I see it, Papa!" cried Meng Meng in surprise. "Meng Meng, now put your right hand on the heart-shaped mark." "Okay." Meng Meng reached out her little hand and pressed the mark 3 times. Then Zhang Han smiled and carried Meng Meng back. Meng Meng blinked her eyes and looked at Zhang Han in confusion. "I saw nothing. It will come out soon." Zhang Han replied softly. At this moment, he felt that this mark could only be activated by those who inherited his genes. The others couldn't even feel it at all, because that heart-shaped stone was also a divine object. It was interesting for Zhang Han to find that his father left a 4th stage spirit treasure here as a little secret. After all, his father was the young master of Heavenly Knights sect and had many treasures. The heart-shaped stone had a great significance of commemoration. It was the secret of Zhang Guangyu and Zhang Han before, and now it had become the secret of him and Meng Meng. Zhang Guangyu did not expect that it would be his granddaughter who activated this mark. Zoom, zoom, zoom. What Meng Meng didn't see was that the heart-shaped mark was shining like a diamond now. Bang! All of a sudden, under the full attention of Meng Meng, the stone at the edge of her foot moved, like a drawer opening slowly. The space inside was almost as big as the desk, and a piece of palm-sized light black diamond was lying in it peacefully. "What is it?" Meng Meng asked curiously. Zhang Han bent down to take out the gem, and then the stone box slowly closed. Zhang Han looked at the gem and smiled. "This is our secret, Meng Meng. If you can't find Dad one day, you can come here, open the box, write a letter and put it in. Dad will see it one day, or put some other things in the box, such as the stone in my hand." "Huh? No, I don't want it." Meng Meng shook her head to refuse Zhang Han. "Why not?" Zhang Han was surprised. Because I won't be unable to find Papa." "Papa, you promised to accompany Meng Meng all the time, forever." Zhang Han was amused and slightly narrowed his eyes to hide his mood. Then he nodded, "Yes, I'll always be by Meng Meng's side." Zhang Han chuckled and hugged Meng Meng. He kissed Meng Meng on her small, pink face, and then went to Ziyan and Jiang Li. Have you finished sharing the little secret?" Ziyan asked. "Well, I can't tell Mama the little secret between Papa and me," said Meng Meng solemnly. "If you don't tell Mama, Mama will be sad." Ziyan covered her eyes with her hands and pretended to cry. Meng Meng was nervous and hurriedly said, "Don't cry, Mama, I'll tell you. Ha ha." Ziyan couldn't help laughing. Then she reached out and pinched Meng Meng's little face. "Mama is playing with you. You and Papa's little secret must be kept." "Huh?" Meng Meng was confused. When they returned to the village, Zhao Feng and Xiong had been waiting for them by the car. Zhao Feng walked towards Zhang Han and whispered in his eyes, "Master, the elder village head is very frank and wants nothing from us, so I called Patriarch Chen, and he has sent someone to take full charge over it." This was the influence of the strong in martial arts. There would always be many people willing to help Zhang Han. However, the Chen family was an exception. Because of the all-out drought demonic dragon Chen Chenking got, the whole Chen family was very grateful to Zhang Han, and the warlord of Chan clan specially informed Patriarch Chen to treat Zhang Han as himself. When he heard the news for the first time, Patriarch Chen was a little confused. What did he mean? Should I call Zhang Han Uncle Zhang? He soon understood it and was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Elder Chen would make such a decision, which showed that Zhang Han Yang was placed in the same position as him. Zhang Han Yang hasn't reached Divine Realm yet. What will happen after he makes a breakthrough? Patriarch Chen was looking forward to it. After receiving Zhao Feng's call, he immediately sent someone to arrange the matter. When Zhang Han and his family returned to Shangjing, they met some Chen family members. When they saw Zhang Han's cars, they parked their cars on the side of the road. Then they got out of the car and waved. It seemed as if they met their leaders. Chapter 643, News from Father. All the way, as Zhang Han was driving, he was listening to the beautiful women and pretty girls singing happily in the back seat. This was an experience that more than 90% of men would look forward to. He had a beautiful wife, a delicate and lovely daughter and Rolls-Royce. Some rich people were enjoying similar lives, but each family had their own problems, and their happiness and pain were not appreciated by others. But Zhang Han didn't worry about anything. Strength was everything. Now Zhang Han had gathered many forces. The powerful Gai family in the northeast. The Chen family, who had an important position in the whole Hua nation. The whole Wang family in Xihang, as well as the Rong family in Linhai City and the family of Zhang Han's mother-in-law in Singapore. The social relations and status he had were unimaginable. Apart from all these families, there were the warlord of Chan clan, Chen Chenking and Gai Xingkong at Divine Realm, who had good relationships with Zhang Han, and even Jiwash Wang could help him sometimes. In addition, there were more Grandmaster Strongs, including Lutanan, Wang Zanping and even the 6 martial arts grandmasters in Meng Meng security, which were beyond count. This was already a huge power, and everyone in the martial arts world knew who Zhang Han Yang was. They knew how powerful he was. They also knew that Zhang Han Yang's wife was a beautiful woman named Ziyan, and he had a lovely daughter named Meng Meng. Neither of them could be provoked. Many families warned their children that they would rather provoke Zhang Han Yang than provoke his wife and daughter. All the super forces in the city were aware of this fact, but those with little influence were still not clear about it. Strength decided everything, and they didn't have access to the news from the upper level. The whole martial arts world in Hua Nation were talking about Zhang Han Yang and Emperor King's affairs in Shangjing. But as one of the parties, Zhang Han didn't pay much attention to this. He was driving at this time, and did not observe the gem left by his father, because he felt the unique seal on the gem. Although the seal could be opened easily, Zhang Han thought that there may be some news stored in the gem and planned to go back to the villa and make plans. Zhang Han was familiar with Shangjing and soon drove back to the villa where the Chen family lived. He saw Patriarch Chen and two men in suits standing at the gate. Patriarch Chen hurriedly went to welcome Zhang Han. "Mr. Zhang, we have made a detailed plan for the road construction in Hidden Dragon Village. This is the planning book, which covers the whole Hidden Dragon Village. Would you like to have a look at it?" "No, of course I'm not worried about what Patriarch Chen has planned." Zhang Han was in a good mood, so he smiled and continued, "The cost of this project can be handed over to Xuyong." Zhang Han wanted to pay for the construction, though he had no idea how much it would be. Because he knew that he would not be short of money or spirit treasures, since Zhang Han had learned the skill known as treasure sniffing nose. He knew that he would never be short of money in his life. But Patriarch Chen didn't know this, so he felt nervous after hearing Zhang Han's words. "Don't do that, Mr. Zhang, you are Chen Qing's brother and a member of the Chen family. I will be criticized by Elder Chen if you pay for the construction. Mr. Zhang, please stop saying that, and I will personally supervise this matter." Zhang Han looked at Patriarch Chen and shook his head without saying anything more. Then he took Meng Meng and Xian directly to the villa. Zhao Feng, Instructor Liu and Xuyong were left outside to talk with Chen Jiazhu about the construction of Hidden Dragon Village. They just needed to confirm the plans, and other things could completely be entrusted to the Chen family. This matter was too small for the Chen family. "Let's play with the toys." Meng Meng saw several dolls on the sofa by the side of the big balcony and hurried to them. Xian smiled and followed Meng Meng. "Oh, I'm tired. I'll come back after a nap." Zhang Li stretched out, threw herself into the sofa and said lazily, "You'd better take a look at this before that." Zhang Han sat next to her and showed her that gem. The gem was just a third-stage spirit treasure. Zhang Han could smell it but had no other feelings. "What is this?" Zhang Li asked, not surprisingly. "It's something our dad left." Whoosh. Zhang Li sat up straight and looked at the gem carefully. "What is this? Let's see what is in it." Zhang Han said and then pierced his soul sense into the gem. Buzz. The gem suddenly turned into a deep blue, like the vast ocean with clouds above it. Zhang Han sensed a mysterious and profound qi. Han. The familiar voice caused the two people on the sofa to shiver. It belonged to their father. "You are the only one who can find this, since you can activate the mark I left. You must be a martial artist now. I didn't expect you to set foot on this road without my guidance. Now you know a lot about the martial arts world, right? Dad didn't want to keep it from you deliberately. I was going to tell you about it when you were 18, but you went out for a day and a night on your 18th birthday, which made me feel that you were still a little immature. Therefore, I planned to tell you on your 20th birthday and to lead you on the road to martial arts, but I was very unfortunate. You should have heard about the worldlet. If you don't know it, I will tell you when I return. You can simply regard the worldlet as the Xanadu in Peach Blossom Spring. Your mother and I are now in Heavenly Knight's sect in the worldlet to deal with some matters. We didn't tell you about this in order to keep you safe. But now that you are a martial artist, Zhang Wengyu's son must be of extraordinary talent. Anyway, you should remember that no matter where I am, I will return regardless of all the restrictions. If this world doesn't accept me, I will cut this world to pieces. So what you have to do is to live a good life, take care of your sister, and tell her that her parents are returning. Zhang Wengyu's words slowly came out of the gem and came into Zhang Han's and Zhang Li's mind. This third-stage spirit treasure was actually a rare gene stone, which could play the words recorded in it after being activated. Zhang Han and Zhang Li were stunned after hearing their father's words. Zhang Li bit her lower lip to remain calm. She was so excited now. The dark blue on the gem was a lot lighter. Obviously, the energy left by Zhang Guangyu was being consumed. Well, it's time to get down to business. Since you can open this gem, it means that you are at least above Chi Strength Master Stage. But it's not enough. I call this stone a guiding stone, and it's a map. The map will guide you to a very dangerous secret place called Dark Abyss. Remember that it's so dangerous that 90% of explorers will be killed there. You can't go there before you reach the Divine Realm stage, and you'd better wait for me to return. As for your cultivation, you can go to King Feng sect in Xihang to ask Chief Ui for your father's belongings kept by him, which can help you cultivate for a long time. Foundation is very important in cultivation, which represents the extension of your strength in the future. Therefore, I left you a set of cultivating methods called Anti-Heaven. I'll explain this set of methods later. Finally, I'd like to tell you that though you don't always listen to your father, you have to be obedient this time and wait for your parents to return. We are very sorry for leaving you and wonder if you can give us a chance to make up for it. Along with the familiar voice, a set of cultivating methods was sent into Zhang Han's and Zhang Li's mind along with three-dimensional illustrations. Zhang Li wanted to cry, while Zhang Han was looking at the set of methods with a soft smile. "Ah, I will give you a set of methods 100 times better than this one when you come home. Don't jump up in fear at that time." The dark blue light on the gem disappeared, revealing a seal that needed to be broken with a certain level of spiritual sense energy. Only martial artists at the Divine Realm stage could break this seal and get the map inside. Zhang Han's father didn't expect that though Zhang Han hadn't reached the Divine Realm stage, his spiritual sense mind trick was powerful enough to break the seal. It was easy for Zhang Han to break the seal, but he shook his head and murmured, "I'll listen to you this time. It sounds as if I used to be so naughty. I'll wait for you to return." Dark Abyss was also a very dangerous place in Zhang Han's eyes. It should be less than half a year before the gate of the small world was opened, and Zhang Han decided to wait for it. It would take more than half a year for Thunder Yang Wood to mature. If the Thunder Yang Wood was successfully shaped, Zhang Han would not have to worry. If it was not shaped, he could make other plans. But Zhang Han didn't plan to take the Thunder Yang pill soon, because he wanted to gather 10,000 thunderclouds above his soul sense C before he reached the innateness stage. He would get a lot more benefits from breaking into the innateness stage after reaching his limits. Zhang Han could imagine how strong he would be. Zhang Han had never heard about the 10 inches Danshan or 10,000 thunderclouds before. Even in his previous life, Qi refining stage was said to be the beginning of cultivation, and building base stage was the foundation of the road to cultivation. Both the two stages were the entry level, and innateness stage was the real beginning of cultivation. Zhang Han looked forward to the time when he reached the innateness stage and achieved a wonderful strength. He wanted to be powerful in both the martial arts world and world lit. Comparatively speaking, the world he lived in was the main world, but the world lit was the main battlefield. But it was still a little far away. Zhang Han withdrew his senses from the gem, sat on the sofa with Zhang Li for a few minutes, and then heard Xian calling him, "Sweetheart, Teacher Lu Go sent a WeChat message to me just now. It's our teacher Lu." Meng put down the toys for a while and looked up at Mama. What did he say? Zhang Han stood up and walked towards Xian. "Here I come, baby." Zhang Li went to find Meng. She was in a low mood now and wanted to have fun with the little girl for a while. While Zhang Li sat down beside Meng, Zhang Han sat down beside Xian. Teacher Lu said that we will start school on the 26th and have a parents' meeting on the 25th. Xian asked, "Now we have only 5 days, let's go back and prepare for it. Maybe I'll be busy with my work. Should I go to the parents' meeting together with you? Let's talk about this later. You can come with me if you want, or I will go alone." Zhang Han answered casually, "Okay." Xian nodded softly, and then leaned her head on Zhang Han's shoulder. She felt so happy to have such a husband. At least she didn't need to worry about anything. So in these 2 days, according to the plan, Zhang Han and his family went to the children's park the next day, where Meng had a good time. After all, the little princess could try out all the different rides, which she had never seen in other amusement parks. Those exciting rides such as roller coasters were not suitable for her, but lots of amusement parks focused on these exciting rides to attract customers. While the family of 3 were having fun, Instructor Liu, Zhao Feng, Xuyong and Leng were also enjoying their holiday. They were not like Elder Wang, Wang Ming and Rong Jiaxin, who would stay in the villa all the time. They went out on the first day, not to the amusement park, but to the Great Wall and other tourist attractions. Interestingly, when they drove to the Forbidden City, they saw a refitted beetle at a traffic light intersection. The 2 cars were waiting for the green light side by side. Sitting in the back row near the window, Instructor Liu saw Jiang Yanlan in the other car, who was wearing a leather suit. Wow! Instructor Liu was attracted by her. Pow! No sooner had Jiang Yanlan opened the window than she heard a provocative whistle. Huh? When Jiang Yanlan saw Instructor Liu, she raised her eyebrows subconsciously. Little beauty, why do you wear leather all day? Can't you change your style? As a gentleman, I can accompany you to the shopping mall and help you choose some good-looking clothes, such as lace. Get lost. Jiang Yanlan's face darkened as she cursed. Don't behave like a rogue. Ah, you're not right. I'm kind. Bang 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 bang. When the green light came on, there were 4 loud noises from the tires of the car which Instructor Liu was in. The others were stunned. Jiang Yanlan smiled and hummed, and then she stepped on the accelerator to rush forward. Everyone left behind were staring at Instructor Liu. You are unreasonable. Instructor Liu stretched out his head and shouted, I'll put you on the ground and whip your ass the next time I catch you. Jiang Yanlan almost stopped and came back to beat him. After thinking about it, Jiang Yanlan gave up. Zhao Feng and his fellows lifted the car slightly with their spiritual force and then went to change the tires, so their plan for the day was abandoned. At 8 p.m., they went to a big bar. They all missed the atmosphere of the bar very much. Even Leng, who didn't speak very much, would drink foreign wine and shake her body to the rhythm of heavy metal music. They ordered a relatively large table. After sitting for a while, Xuyong stood up and said, Let's dance. Let's go. Zhao Feng stood up. However, when they entered the dance floor, ouch! Instructor Liu suddenly felt an evil spirit and turned to have a look. He gasped in fear. Jiang Yanlan was grinning while walking slowly towards him. Jiang Yanlan was at Grandmaster Peak stage and Instructor Liu couldn't defeat her. Therefore, he forced a smile and said, There you are, Captain. What a coincidence. Yes. What a coincidence. Jiang Yanlan licked her red lips and was about to beat Instructor Liu. It's just a misunderstanding. Instructor Liu kept retreating. Zhao Feng and others quickly withdrew from the battlefield. What misunderstanding, huh? Do you know the result of annoying me? Jiang Yanlan came over with a sneer. Instructor Liu's forehead began to sweat. However, when Jiang Yanlan was about to approach Instructor Liu, she heard someone's voice. Lanlan, why did you come here alone? Why didn't you wait for us? Then she saw 1 young man and 3 young women. Jiang Yanlan quickly withdrew her evil spirit and turned to look at her teammates. I came here because I saw someone I knew. Wow, who is he? Hello. Instructor Liu approached Jiang Yanlan and smiled at her teammates. I'm Liu Wyman, Lanlan's boyfriend. I'm here for her. Just have fun here and I'll pay for all of you. Instructor Liu ignored Jiang Yanlan, whose face had darkened, and turned his gaze to a stunned short girl. Where is your table? We are at table 556. She answered without thinking. Okay, see you soon. Instructor Liu nodded politely and left the dance floor. Before he left, he smiled to provoke Jiang Yanlan again. What are you going to do? Leng asked Instructor Liu while being pulled off the dance floor by him. I'll be beaten if I stay here, let's visit another place. Instructor Liu replied. As he passed the counter, he said to the waiter, Hello, I'm at table 556, please serve us several bottles of expensive wine. After ordering some expensive drinks, they left the bar. Zhao Feng's mouth was slightly quivering as he said, Instructor, I didn't know that you are so naughty. Aren't you afraid of being killed by Captain Jiang? Ha, it's the most important to enjoy ourselves. We'll soon go back to Hong Kong and she can't find me. Instructor Liu was confident. He succeeded. Seeing all these bottles of expensive wine served one by one, Jiang Yanlan's teammates shouted, "Lanlan, how generous your boyfriend is." Jiang Yanlan's face darkened again. When she went to pay the bill, she was shocked by the bill. However, what goes around comes around. After Zhao Feng and others left for another bar, they enjoyed themselves until 11 p.m. When they left the bar and went to the parking lot, they saw the woman in leather sitting at the top of their car. Under Instructor Liu's astonished gaze, Jiang Yanlan slowly turned around and smiled. Hiss. She is so scary. Zhang Feng and the others retreated as quickly as they could. The scream of Instructor Liu soon emerged from the parking lot. Just enjoy it if you can't resist her, Instructor Liu. Chapter 644, Disappeared Mount Redleaf. Ah. Oh. Ouch. While listening to the sound of Instructor Liu being beaten, Zhao Feng, Xuyong and Leng looked at each other. It sounds like a terrible fight. Xuyong's face shrank. Well, he deserves it. Leng murmured. She had no pity for Instructor Liu. Instead, she felt very happy. Ah, Instructor Liu is too naughty. He usually follows the master or emperor king, and Captain Jiang dares not hit him. Now that he is alone in Jiang Yanlan's hands, he will surely be beaten violently. After all, Captain Jiang is a strong woman at the top stage. Zhao Feng shook his head and sighed. But, Xuyong's voice was very low, do you think that Instructor Liu and Captain Jiang looked like a couple? Hiss, be careful. Do you want to be beaten, too? Zhao Feng was scared. We don't want to get involved. Captain Jiang will beat all of us if she hears this, and we can't defeat her. Fortunately, Jiang Yanlan, who was so engrossed in beating Instructor Liu, did not hear their comments. The screams lasted for 10 minutes, and Jiang Yanlan's hair was a bit messy. This feels good. Her eyes lit up, and she felt her pores dilate and bones softening with joy. Do you dare mess with me next time? Next time I'll beat you until you are paralyzed. Jiang Yanlan withdrew her hand and glanced triumphantly at the Instructor Liu on the ground. Ouch, I dare not, I dare not. Instructor Liu replied while groaning in pain. He looked at Jiang Yanlan's expression with his eyes that had been beaten blue. Her pride made him itch, not knowing when he could beat her back. Behave yourself and I don't want to see you again. Jiang Yanlan snorted, reached out her finger, shook the keys of her car, and then turned around to walk back to her beetle. She felt so happy now and her steps were light. Instructor Liu shivered with anger at her. Under Instructor Liu's gaze, Jiang Yanlan got in her car, shook her hair, stepped on the accelerator and drove forward. Whoosh! Instructor Liu stood up in a flash. Just as Jiang Yanlan's car was caught in the middle by traffic and was about to disappear at the street entrance, Instructor Liu called out, "Wait for me, I'll beat your ass next time." When he saw the beetle stop, he almost ran away in fear. Fortunately, the car behind Jiang Yanlan's followed her closely and couldn't be got rid of at last. Therefore, Jiang Yanlan failed to get out of her car. Instead, she lowered the window and stretched out her left hand suddenly to raise her middle finger. Naked contempt. Just as Instructor Liu wanted to say something cruel, there was a slight cough. "Young man, why were you beaten so badly by a woman? Is she your girlfriend?" Turning around, he saw an old woman walking her dog, shaking her head. "You must have been caught wandering in the bar. You are so impetuous when you are young. How could your girlfriend, who looks very beautiful and quiet, be provoked by you? Your eyes are black and you'd better go back to see your doctor." Buzz. Instructor Liu was dizzy. My God, do I have to be reprimanded after being beaten? But Instructor Liu could not do anything in the face of the aged lady in her 50s. So he forced to smile and said, "You are right. This way, you'd better walk slowly and be careful not to sprain your feet. Your legs and feet are healthy." After a few words, Instructor Liu took over the topic and stopped giving her the chance to talk. After the aged woman left, Zhao Feng and the others came back. Oh, you have been beaten into a panda. Xuanhuan looked at Instructor Liu's dark eyes and said with a smile, "You deserve to be beaten," said Leng Yi. "Let's go home." Zhao Feng nodded and went to the driver's seat. "Ouch, my butt hurts, my leg hurts, my arm hurts, my eyes hurts, give me a hand." Instructor Liu called out. No one helped him. "How merciless of you guys." Instructor Liu limped to the back seat and fell onto it. After driving all the way back to the Chen family, Instructor Liu covered his face and entered the villa where they lived. After entering the room, he found an iron pot, took some herbs out of his space ring, boiled them into a pot of soup medicine in half an hour and drank it. Then he took out a few leaves and applied them to his eyes. After all these were done, he threw himself onto the sofa. He waited for about half an hour like a girl with a facial mask. Puff. Instructor Liu breathed out a breath and took off the changed leaves. His eyes were back to normal. His body didn't hurt, and he could jump again. "Instructor, I didn't expect you to be so active after you left the army." Zhao Feng looked at Instructor Liu and said with a smile, "That's not the same." Instructor Liu replied seriously, "I was the leading wolf in the army who would set an example for all my brothers. When I was on a mission, I needed to be more careful. If any brother died because of my mistakes, I dared not think about it. So he wasn't very active in the army, he was disciplined most of the time." Then Instructor Liu laughed again. "My life now is just like a vacation, it's easy and casual, it's like a dream, but I'm really a martial art grandmaster now. In fact, I thought I would return to the army in the future, but now it seems that I won't. I've recommended a lot of chi strength masters to the army as instructors, which is also a great achievement. My uncle is also very satisfied with me. As for me, I want to stay in Meng security, hug my boss's thigh and enjoy my life. But that can't be a reason to provoke Captain Jiang." Leng reminded him. Instructor Liu fell into silence. "Yes, are you interested in Captain Jiang?" Xuanhuan asked curiously. "No." Instructor Liu jumped up. "Me interested in her? That's impossible." His words were persuasive, but his expression betrayed him. His friends smiled and gave up trying to persuade him. Maybe his dream would come true one day. But he must reach the same stage as Jiang Yanlan first. Jiang Yanlan was at Grandmaster Peak stage, and would soon reach the Divine Realm stage. Where was Instructor Liu? Let's stop talking about it. At first, he was a little complacent because he became a martial arts grandmaster, but now, with the level of the people he came into contact with getting higher and higher, he realized that he was still a beginner. Many martial artists in the martial arts world respected martial arts grandmasters like him. They dreamed to become a martial arts grandmaster. But Instructor Liu always followed Zhang Han Yang and Emperor King, who were at a much higher level than him. There is no harm without comparison. The next day, Instructor Liu and the others continued to travel, eat, drink and have fun. Zhang Han's family of 3 went out to entertain themselves, leaving Zhang Li at the villa, who felt bored. But this was Shangjing City, where Zhang Li was born and raised, and there would always be some old friends. Zhang Li made several phone calls to invite her good friends out to have fun. They had dinner together and then went to the club. Originally, the first half of the reunion was about reminiscing the past. Later, after the arrival of 2 girls' boyfriends, they called 7 or 8 more friends, and the atmosphere changed a little. One of the girls jeered at Zhang Li, and her boyfriend echoed. He claimed that he could invite these girls to the largest nightclub in Shangjing City for entertainment. He had good relationship with the big brother who was guarding the club there. They went to the new nightclub and were arranged at table 3. But after they stayed there for an hour, there came a man in a suit, frowning and scolding the big brother who was guarding the club. "Did I ask you to fill the first 3 tables at will? What would you do when those distinguished guests come later?" "Yes, yes, I'll change the table for them right away." The big brother's forehead was covered with a cold sweat. Then he turned his head quickly. "You'd better leave." "No." Under everyone's gaze, The man in a suit stared at the big brother and then patted him on his head. There he approached the girls carefully. "Miss Zhang, why are you here? I didn't know that you are here, and I almost made a mistake. I'm sorry, please forgive me." All the other girls and their boyfriends were stunned. "I'm sorry, but who are you?" Zhang Li asked hesitantly. "I'm Mark Xiaonan of the Ma family, and you have never met me before, but I know you, Miss Zhang, and our chairman must be very happy to know you are here. I'll go inform him. Facts speak louder than words. At this time, all the people who knew Zhang Li were confused and found that her position was even higher than before. Why, she is not a member of the Zhang family now. Of course, they didn't know what a terrifying brother Zhang Li had. Everyone knew that if Zhang Li was provoked, her brother would soon be there in person. Who could resist the arrival of Zhang Han Yang? The Qiao family and Lin family that had been destroyed were examples. The whole Shangjing city had performed deep research on the people around Zhang Han, and most of the managers knew they couldn't be offended or provoked. Zhang Li's table was immediately served with a wide range of delicious food and drinks, which were of high value and free of charge. Zhang Li didn't sit for a long time because everyone beside her didn't know what to say. The chairman standing like a waiter at the door made them feel a lot of pressure. This was the last episode of Zhang Han's group left in Shangjing. They all went out and enjoyed themselves. Instructor Liu did not meet Jiang Yanlan the next day. However, on the third day, it was 8 o'clock in the morning. Bang! A boom of thunder resounded all over Shangjing city. Many martial artists turned their gaze to the south, feeling it was so weird. Because the other places were sunny, only the area of Mount Redleaf was covered with dark clouds, like being pressed by an invisible mountain, which made people feel depressed. What was more, the dark clouds were still surging like boiling hot water. Many people were surprised and kept observing in that direction. Ow! When an unknown, frightening roar came from afar, they were stunned. Damn it, what a strange scene. Is there a demon being born? That layer of clouds are strange. Is it an experiment? What did that sound like just now? How strange it is. Many people were discussing about it. Ow! The second roar sounded closer to them. Many people in the high-rise buildings on the edge of the southern district of Shangjing suddenly saw a huge black shadow flash by in the dark cloud like an airplane, whose huge tail shocked them. What's that? This topic soon spread through WeChat. The whole martial arts world was shocked by the news. That is Mount Redleaf, where Emperor King lives. What is he doing? Let's go to have a look. A lot of martial artists rushed to Mount Redleaf like worshippers. Yi Danlang, the head of National Security Agency, was the first to arrive at that mountain. When he arrived, he found that the stone house of Mount Redleaf had been overturned, and Chen Chenking was sitting on the platform inside. His heartbeat was steady. The tattoos on his chest and back were shining, and there was black mist flowing in the light. What's going on? Yi Danlang looked at the warlord of Chan clan in confusion. How did he reach the divine realm again? Hasn't he made a perfect breakthrough before? The warlord of Chan clan smiled without answering his question. You? Yi Danlang was annoyed. The warlord of Chan clan slowly replied, you won't understand. Then he turned his gaze to Chen Chenking with a smile. He was also shocked just now. At the beginning of Chen Chenking's breakthrough, Elder Chen made 8 layers of protective arrays around him. However, when he began to break through, he was able to absorb the energy of heaven and earth, and the strange scene was overwhelming, which immediately destroyed all the protective arrays. He could not stop it, and he had no choice but to watch Chen Chenking. It took him a long time to digest what he had seen. The power of Zhang Han's methods was beyond his imagination. All-8 drought demonic dragon. What a high-level set of methods it is. The inheritance of Han Yang immortal. Ha ha, the future of Chenking is limitless. I didn't expect that he could enjoy such a great opportunity by finding a good brother for himself. The power of his blood was improved, and his cultivating method was changed into a much higher level one, which helped him to get back to the divine realm within 3 days. No one else can do this. It's amazing. What a great martial artist will Zhang Han grow to be. What's going on? Yi Danlang frowned. The fluctuation above has caused some chaos. I don't want it to be more severe, old Chen. This warlord of Chan clan said helplessly, I have no idea. I set 8 arrays before, which were all destroyed by the strange scene. Really? Yi Danlang slightly narrowed his eyes. A mighty force of stars was formed from under the black clouds, intending to break them down one by one. However, when the power of stars were about to touch the black clouds, ow! A bleak and majestic voice was heard again. Clatter. 100-foot-long dragon tail was thrown down to break Yi Danlang's power of stars. It was not enough. Buzz. Yi Danlang felt his brain buzzing, and he stepped back more than 10 steps. When he raised his head again, he looked astonished. What an amazing power of heaven and earth! What did Chen Chenking do? Will the dragon fly out later? Yi Danlang got nervous. If there was a dragon flying around Shangjing City several times, the whole world would be shocked. Perhaps they could take this opportunity to promote the martial arts in their own country. But what if the outcome was not optimistic? Could they explain to ordinary people that this was a holographic display just as they had done many times before? Who would believe that there was a holographic display covering the whole city? Even the other 3 captains in the city noticed the strange scene. They rushed to Mount Redleaf as soon as possible and were also shocked by the truth. They had never seen such a kind of breakthrough. On the other hand, the Chen family was overjoyed. Such an amazing scene meant that Emperor King was even more powerful than before. But they also knew that the dark clouds were not the manifestation of Chen Chenking's strength. His strength had not reached such a level, and even the powerful masters at Earthrealm stage could hardly exert such an amazing move. This was because, at the time of breakthrough, his chi could connect with the heaven and the earth and generate this amazing scene. Since it couldn't be stopped, everyone could only watch it. They came quickly and felt the pressure completely. As for the martial artists who came to see the scene after them, they saw the dark cloud billowing more violently towards Mount Redleaf, and the shape of the clouds soon turned into that of a tornado. Under the gaze of all the people on Mount Redleaf, large clouds were falling rapidly. The shape of the whole cloud was like a dragon. Everyone was stunned. Ow! The dragon was heard again, followed by a huge amount of spiritual chi carried by the dragon shadow, which kept getting smaller and compressed, and finally converged on Chen Chenking's tattoo. Boom! A heavy heartbeat surrounded the whole Mount Redleaf, as if other people's hearts stopped beating at this moment and were suppressed by that low heartbeat. Chen Chenking suddenly opened his eyes, and the weird light in his eyes gradually disappeared. The clouds in the sky dissipated slowly. They left as fast as they came. It seemed as if the amazing scene had never appeared. Clatter. When Chen Chenking stood up, everyone else present sensed a kind of chi 10 times stronger than that he had released in the previous breakthrough. The warlord of Chan clan was so excited, Chenking. Yi Danlang's mouth trembled slightly. He had a feeling that Chen Chenking could defeat him. Now there were 2 high-level martial artists in the Chen family, and it would be hard to change the position of this family for a long time even after the warlord of Chan clan left this world. Besides Emperor King, his abnormal brother was also beyond Yi Danlang's imagination. Zhang Han Yang. What kind of cultivating method did you give Emperor King? No one told Yi Danlang about it, but he could guess the truth. The duel that day gave Yi Danlang a feeling that Zhang Han Yang was more likely to teach Emperor King. Now it seemed that his guess was right. The newborn Emperor King was more powerful. While thinking about it, Yi Danlang offered his wishes. Congratulations, Emperor King, you've made such an amazing breakthrough. Thank you. Chen Chenking nodded happily. He felt the great amount of spiritual chi in his meridians. His vast danshan that had been greatly expended and his soul sense that was more precise than before. This is the real perfect breakthrough. How could he have regarded the former one as a perfect breakthrough? Ha ha ha, good. The warlord of Chan clan burst out laughing and said, Chenking, your brother Han will leave in a flight this afternoon. Let's go home first. Okay. Shan Wangzhang jumped into the sky and looked down at the scene of complete devastation on Mount Redleaf. He sighed, there will be no Mount Redleaf from now on. Chapter 645, Back to Hong Kong. Shan Wangzhang sighed. It gave Jiang Yanlan and others a very strong feeling, as if the age of Emperor King was over in his sigh. Mount Redleaf, which had been devastated, was not as beautiful as before. It seemed to echo Shan Wangzhang's sigh, but there was a new life waiting for Shan Wangzhang. He was 10 times stronger than before, and now he could easily defeat Zhang Han. But everyone present, including Shan Wangzhang himself, knew that the next era belonged to merciless Zhang. Let's go back. The warlord of Chan clan said. Okay. Shan Wangzhang nodded. Looking down at Elder Lao on a rock, who once guarded Mount Redleaf, he smiled. Uncle Wang, our gambling is over. Can you rest assured and come home this time? Ha ha ha, Elder and young master, I've been living with you and admiring you for many years. If there's anything I can do in the future, don't hesitate to inform me. Goodbye. The old man surnamed Wang laughed and turned to leave. He was not a member of the Chen family, but a defeated martial artist of Emperor King. They agreed that the defeated should serve the winner as a guardian, so he stayed in Mount Redleaf for 6 years. The warlord of Chan clan and Shan Wangzhang flew to Shangjing City in the north. Wait a minute, Emperor King, are you going to Hong Kong with Zhang Han? Jiang Yanlan hurried to fly towards them under the astonished gaze of the other 3 captains. Yes, it was not easy for me to obtain this breakthrough, and I want to enjoy a long vacation. Hong Kong will be my first destination. Shan Wangzhang nodded. Well, I'll go with you. I want to see Zhang Hanyang's lovely daughter. Jiang Yanlan said. Shan Wangzhang paused, looked at Jiang Yanlan and frowned slightly. He pondered for 3 seconds and then said, I hope you just want to see Meng Meng. Huh? Jiang Yanlan was stunned before she understood Shan Wangzhang's words. He thinks I'm going to seduce Zhang Hanyang? It's none of your business. Jiang Yanlan snorted. Ha. The warlord of Chan clan was amused. Wangzhang, Captain Jiang is also noble, and she will not do what you think. Okay. Shan Wangzhang turned around calmly. He was always the calm Emperor King in front of the other people, and only Zhang Han could turn him back into that little brother. It was the same with Jiang Yanlan. Somehow, she just felt a bit of pressure in the face of Zhang Han. It was not that kind of pressure of strength, but of spirit. Jiang Yanlan followed the Jins and flew to Shangjing City on the north side. The other 3 captains were left behind looking at each other along with Yi Tanlang. Damn it. Did Lanlan fall in love with Zhang Hanyang? Captain Xuanhuan shouted. Lanlan never focused on Emperor King in his era as frequently as she focused on Zhang Hanyang. She even went to Linhai City and Shangjing to meet him. Wow, what you said seemed to be true. As your dragon tutted, is the flower of our National Security Agency going to be picked? No. Is it going to float to someone else? But it's not very good since Zhang Hanyang is married, and he seems to cherish Xian and Meng Meng so much. How could other women attract him? I agree with you. Bai who said, I remember hearing something in Hong Kong at the beginning. Scorpion has once provoked Meng Meng to tears, and his force was soon destroyed by Zhang Hanyang, who was just at peak strength stage then. Since he had been making rapid progress, I'm afraid he was actually unlocking his own strength, otherwise he couldn't cultivate at such a high speed. Yes, I also heard that Zhang Hanyang may be the reincarnation of an immortal, said Black Tortoise in a muffled voice. By the way, White Tiger said, there is an instructor Liu in Meng Meng security, and each time he and Captain Jiang would sneer at each other, Captain Jiang beat him up the night before yesterday. Is there any special relationship between them? According to Captain Jiang's temper, she would kill the person who provoked her rather than just beating him, and I saw Captain Jiang's sweet smile watching the surveillance. It's strange. It sounds quite reasonable. Captain Jiang is in her 20s and is likely to fall in love with someone. Captain Azure Dragon smiled. Yi Danlang was about to leave when he heard their discussion. He slightly narrowed his eyes and said, "I'm going to leave soon. I'll arrange your work before that." Black Tortoise, lead a team to Lin Hai City. There may be some islanders making trouble recently. White Tiger, go to the border defense of Xuanhuan province with your men as the martial arts world of Dylan is a bit noisy recently. Go and kill all the troublemakers. He soon arranged the work of 2 detachments. The Black Tortoise detachment was in charge of protecting the country, while the White Tiger detachment was in charge of killing their enemies. Most of Captain White Tiger's tasks were related to killing others. As your dragon, you stay in Shangjing and arrange daily affairs. As for the Million Bird, Yi Danlang pondered and showed a sly smile. 2 seconds later, let her go to guard Hong Kong. Hong Kong and Shenzhen should be carefully guarded recently. After all, Zhang Han Yang and Emperor King are there, and she should prevent them from hurting the flowers and grass. Whoosh! Yi Danlang left Mount Redleaf and flew to the east like a streak of light. What did he just say? The fat Black Tortoise's face quivered. The 3 of them looked at each other again. Then their laughter spread in Mount Redleaf. They will hurt the flowers and grass? What a good excuse. Captain Jiang may be depressed enough to spit blood after hearing this. I must bring this news to her word for word. Black Tortoise clapped his hands and cheered. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I'm looking forward to her reaction. As your dragon replied with a smile. Then the 3 of them left Mount Redleaf. The red leaves of the mountain had disappeared, and there would be a heap of rocks in this autumn. This once blessed region was consumed by Chen Chenking's breakthrough and completed its mission, which was also the significance of its existence. But Chen Chenking's wonderful life was just beginning. The warlord of Chan clan, Chen Chenking and Jiang Yanlan were all flying fast in the sky. On the way, the warlord of Chan clan raised a layer of energy barrier to prevent them from being seen by ordinary people. Considering Jiang Yanlan's speed, the warlord of Chan clan slowed down his pace. As for Chen Chenking, he felt his meridians along the way, and the comfort brought by the improvement of his strength made him happy. On the way, he said, "All-8 drought demonic dragon, it's unbelievable, Grandpa. I feel that this method is just like the magic of immortals. The transformation of power and the application of spiritual force are perfect, and it's more than 100 times stronger than the previous method." Really? The warlord of Chan clan slightly narrowed his eyes. He didn't expect Chen Chenking to give such a high appraisal. Chen Chenking never told lies, that was to say. The method named All-8 Drought Demonic Dragon was much better than the previous set cultivating methods. It's true, I can fully understand it. Chen Chenking replied simply since Jiang Yanlan was here. Good, good. The warlord of Chan clan was overjoyed. Jiang Yanlan was confused. Zhang Han Yang gave you another set of cultivating methods, so that you could rebuild your martial arts foundation and reach the divine realm again? Chen Chenking took a glance at her and nodded 2 seconds later, yes. This. Jiang Yanlan didn't know what to say. She was thinking about something. Meng security has grown to such a large scale in half a year. What if they are given another half a year? What if they are given 1 year, 2 years or 3 years? As one of the group leaders, is Instructor Liu learning a powerful cultivating method too? What if he becomes more powerful than I? Hiss. Will that idiot really beat my ass? How dare he do that? At this moment, Jiang Yanlan suddenly felt a little upset, and her eyes seemed to be burning. The Juns didn't know what had happened to her. What does she mean? They didn't understand women's minds at all, and they couldn't even guess it. So they pretended not to see her, but they all sped up. Jiang Yanlan realized what had happened before, so she sped up and followed them to the Chen family. They landed directly in the direction of the parking lot. The previous row of Rolls-Royce Phantoms had been sent back by the Chen family. The Chen family's service in all aspects was up to standard, and Zhang Han didn't need to worry about it. At the parking lot, Chen Chenking led the way to the villa arranged for Zhang Han. He knocked on the door and walked in. only to find that there were many people sitting in the hall. There were Wang Zanping, Wang Zanzong, Wang Ming, Rong Jiaxin, Zhao Feng, Zhang Han and his family. They knew that Chen Chenking would come back here after breaking through today, so they all came to wait for him. When they came into the room, Zhang Han let go Meng Meng, turned to look at Chen Chenking, chuckled and said, "You're back." "Yes." Chen Chenking shook his head and smiled. "Brother Han, you really gave me a great opportunity." "It's my pleasure." Zhang Han slightly shook his head. Although it was not so difficult for Chen Chenking to defeat Zhang Han now, the others still felt that Zhang Han was the real elder brother. The famous Emperor King was still also a little brother in front of him. Zhang Han. The Chen family. The warlord of Chan clan wanted to say something seriously. Zhang Han shook his hand to stop him. "Don't be so courteous, Elder Chen, since we have lived in the Chen family for so many days, and I wanted to help Chenking this time, this has nothing to do with you." Apostrophe. The warlord of Chan clan was confused. "I want to beat this guy. Why don't you let me be happy before you leave?" The others, including Elder Wang, were all amused by Zhang Han. Now they were completely adapted to Zhang Han's transcendent and immortal attitude. He didn't care about the status of the warlord of Chan clan, but only cared about the people he paid attention to. He was always indifferent to other affairs. Because of his relationship with Chen Chenking, Zhang Han was very polite to the warlord of Chan clan, but he didn't want to listen to Elder Chen's endless thanks. Ha ha ha. Seeing Grandpa's embarrassed expression, Chen Chenking laughed and went to sit on the sofa beside Zhang Han. The warlord of Chan clan's lips moved as if he had muttered several times. Instead of going to Zhang Han, he sat down beside Wang Zanping and others, and finally enjoyed the feeling of being valued. Instructor Liu kept looking at Jiang Yanlan. They wanted to fight each other. "Hey, isn't this the famous Lanlin? Why are you here?" Instructor Liu took the lead and said in a strange tone, "You." Jiang Yanlan almost couldn't resist beating him, but she was soon stopped by Zhang Han and Chen Chenking's gaze. "I'm here to visit Meng Meng." Jiang Yanlan stepped to Ziyan's side, sat down and said with a smile, "I was attracted by Meng Meng the first time I saw her, but you didn't see me. I heard that you were going to return to Hong Kong, so I'm here to see her off." "Huh?" Hearing her name, Meng Meng raised her head and waved her hand at Jiang Yanlan. "Hello, elder sister." "Hello, Meng Meng, you are so lovely and as beautiful as your mother." Jiang Yanlan said with a smile. "Well, my mama is super beautiful and my papa is super handsome," said Meng Meng proudly. "Am I beautiful?" asked Jiang Yanlan. "Well, yes." Instructor Liu nodded without hesitation. Jiang Yanlan was surprised. She didn't know what to say for the moment. However, Instructor Liu soon added, "But she's not beautiful inside." "Who are you talking about? I think you are the worst and deserve to be punished." Jiang Yanlan couldn't help but want to beat him. With a sad expression, Instructor Liu ran directly to the middle of Zhang Han and Chen Chenking. "Boss, you don't know how miserable it was that I was beaten by her the day before yesterday. Both my eyes were dark and now my arms and legs were still hurting. Can you teach me some unique methods to defeat her? Otherwise, I will be ashamed." Swish. Even the warlord of Chan clan turned his gaze to Instructor Liu. He was amused by the young man. How interesting life is. Almost everyone here liked the character of Instructor Liu very much. They were all waiting for Zhang Han's answer. Under everyone's gaze, Zhang Han looked at Jiang Yanlan seriously. Jiang Yanlan felt a little nervous. Zhang Han Yang was very kind to his man. However, Zhang Han's following words stunned her first, and then she couldn't help laughing. Because Zhang Han looked at Instructor Liu and said, "Aren't you very good at being beaten?" "What?" Instructor Liu was in confusion. Zhang Han gave a reasonable answer. "I remember the first time I saw Instructor Liu, he was beaten by Dai with his legs and his hands. Now he is beaten by Captain Jiang, and he should be able to bear it. Look, he can still jump now." Ha ha. Ziyan burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. Jiang Yanlan was amused and clapped her hands. You deserve it. The attitude of Zhang Li and Leng was very clear. The others also laughed, and even Meng Meng was very gregarious and began giggling. Only the corner of Instructor Liu's mouth was shaking. Well, don't think about changing your cultivating method until you are at the peak. Now you can't bear the change. Zhang Han then gave a positive reply to Instructor Liu. The method they were cultivating now was not the top one. It was not that Zhang Han was reluctant to teach them, nor that he didn't have it. It was that their meridians and even Danshan couldn't bear the higher level method. Not everyone could learn higher level methods. It required the cultivators to have a foundation and change their cultivating methods before or at the innateness stage. Now it was too early for Instructor Liu to do so. They kept talking and laughing. At noon, Jiang Yanlan and the group of people had lunch together. She really came to see Meng Meng and gave her a third stage spirit treasure as a gift. Just after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they got into the Jun's motorcade and went to the international airport. Many big families in Shangjing got the news for the first time. They all sighed with relief. That man finally left the city. Grandpa, I'm going to Hong Kong with Brother Han. Please call me if you need anything. Shan Chenking waved to Elder Chen. Go ahead, and have a good time with your brother Han. Study hard, not only to improve your strength, but also to form a family. The warlord of Chan clan said. With the contact with Meng Meng for a long time, he liked children more and more. He wanted to see if Chenking's children were also talented. Farewell. Zhang Han looked at the warlord of Chan clan, Patriarch Chen and his man. Goodbye, everyone. Ziyan smiled politely and waved her hand. Goodbye, everyone. Meng Meng waved her hands and said goodbye carefully. Goodbye, Mr. Zhang. Please come to the Chen family to be a guest again the next time you have a chance to go back to Shangjing. Patriarch Chen and other senior members of the Chen family responded warmly and politely. They saw Zhang Han get on the plane with his men. Zhao Feng and his fellows were the last to get on the plane. Instructor Liu gave Jiang Yanlan a kiss from afar. The next time I see you, will be beaten. Instructor Liu didn't want to say ass in front of so many people. Jiang Yanlan wanted to beat Instructor Liu right now after hearing his words. He was provoking her again. The next time I'll kill you. Jiang Yanlan pointed at Instructor Liu. However, Instructor Liu got on the plane without seeing her action. Jiang Yanlan felt helpless. It made her uncomfortable. Hearing their quarrel, the elders at present smiled without saying anything. Good luck to them. The apparent enemy was likely to develop into a lover in the future. However, no one could say clearly what will happen in the future. It was their own business how they developed their relationship. Under the gaze of the warlord of Chan clan, core members of the Chen family and Jiang Yanlan, in front of them, the plane slowly moved forward, accelerated, lifted off and disappeared. They went back to Hong Kong. Chapter 646, Excited Emperor King. But that night, at the headquarters of National Security Agency, Captain Azure Dragon told Jiang Yanlan, the boss arranged a task for you to guard Hong Kong and protect the flowers and grass that may be hurt by Emperor King and Zhang Han Yang. Well, he said those words. Then a scream rang through the floor. I hate old Yi. The other three captains chuckled, while the rest of the floor shivered. Jiang Yanlan usually called Yi Danlang brother, but when she was unhappy, she would call him old Yi. However, Yi Danlang didn't seem to be aged. Let's go back to Zhang Han's plane. The little princess was very happy to return to Hong Kong. Sitting in her seat, while waiting for Mama to help her fasten her seat belt, she raised her little hand and hummed, to go back, to see Big Hi Hi and Little Hi Hi, to go back to our castle. Huh? Suddenly, she was stunned and looked up at Zhang Han. What's wrong? Zhang Han asked with confusion. Papa, I forgot to bring gifts for Big Hi Hi and Little Hi Hi. What should we do? Zhang Han hesitated. Let's turn around and fly back. Zhang Han's words stunned everyone around him. Looking at Zhang Han's serious face, they had no doubt that if the little princess said okay, Zhang Han would immediately arrange to go back. What did you say? Luckily, Xian was here, who rolled her eyes at Zhang Han and then told Meng, Mama has prepared the gifts for them. We bought the gifts together when we were shopping. Do you forget? I don't remember. Oh, yes, we have prepared gifts for them. Meng looked at Zhang Han again and said seriously, Papa, we don't need to turn back. Okay. Zhang Han smiled and touched Meng's head. Then Meng began to chat with Xian. I envy you having such a happy family. Shen Qingqing whispered beside Zhang Han. I'm glad to hear that. Zhang Han replied casually. He felt that he was the happiest with Meng as his daughter and Xian as his wife. It was reasonable that everyone admired him. Shen Qingqing was amused by Zhang Han and burst out laughing. By the way, you fell in love with a girl after you left me before? Is she your first love? Zhang Han looked at Shen Qingqing and asked him. Well, I didn't fall in love with her immediately. I was weak and almost died when I absorbed King Dragon blood. That girl stood up when I was bullied. Later, we became familiar with each other, and her figure was etched in my mind. Anyway, I will go find her because I promised her. Well, after all these years, she may have had children. Qingqing, if you were more decisive, you would not regret it now. Zhang Han shook his head slightly. Shen Qingqing had many faults in his character, and he was even a little cowardly in the past, which Zhang Han couldn't understand at all. How could the young master of the Chen family have that kind of character? Well, maybe you're right. Shen Qingqing sighed and smiled again, but I just want to have a look at her. I'll take a rest in your place for a few days before I go to find her. Zhang Han asked casually, what's her name? Shen Qingqing replied slowly while recalling that girl's appearance. Her name is Lengzhi. The name is not very popular, it will be easy to find her. Zhang Han nodded. Huh? Xian, who listened to their conversation carefully, was attracted by the name. Turning around, she began thinking about it. I have heard the name somewhere, though I can't remember when I heard it. I'm sure I've heard it. Xian said. Really? Ha ha, I've made a wise decision to go to Hong Kong. Shen Qingqing said with a smile. He didn't pay attention to their words. Although the name was rare, there must be many people with the same name. And Shen Qingqing knew that Lengzhi was not the girl's name registered in her household register. He asked the specific reason, but she cried, and he never asked it again. The time spent traveling was very boring for most people, but the atmosphere was very lively during this plane flight. In the face of these people, Meng was no longer introverted. She sang 2 songs to everyone in a low voice, and then began to play with her own hairy toys. It wasn't until Meng was tired and fell asleep that the whole cabin was quiet. At 5 o'clock in the evening, the plane landed slowly at the airport behind Meng group. Meng woke up early and was very happy in Papa's arms. But when they got off the plane, Meng murmured, Papa, put me down. You don't like being held by Papa? Zhang Han said with a smile. No, teachers Lu told us that we are grown up and cannot always be held, otherwise Papa and Mama will be very tired. Meng said solemnly. Ha ha ha. Zhang Han put Meng on the ground, touched her little head and said with a smile, our Meng has grown up, but I'll not feel tired when I hold you, even if I fly around the world 100 times with you in my arms. Well, Papa is the most powerful. Meng said, pulling Zhang Han's little finger. Oh, finally back. The air smells so good. Instructor Liu stretched out. Hong Kong. Shen Qingqing looked around and shook his head. This is my second time coming here. Let Zhang Han show you around. Xian smiled, then crouched down and said to Meng, Mama will go to the company to arrange some work. You and Papa go home first, and Mama will come back in a little while. Well, okay, bye, Mama. Meng cleverly waved her hand. Then Xian stood up again and said politely as the hostess, "Dinner is already being prepared at home. Go home first to have dinner if it is ready. Don't wait for us. Bye." Zhang Han patted Xian on the waist. The pretty woman gave him a charming look, and then went to the staff passage on the side of the company accompanied by Leng Yi. "Let's get in the car." Zhang Han led the way to the side of the already arranged motorcade. This series of luxury cars were as good as those in the super families like the Chen family. After they got in, the motorcade went to Mount New Moon. Zhao Feng drove, Zhang Han and Meng Meng sat in the back seat, and Chen Qingqing sat in the front seat. When he got to the front of the company, he saw a tall building. "Your company is not small, Brother Han, you are really good at everything." Chen Qingqing looked out of the window. "These are basically run by Xiaofeng alone." Zhang Han replied. "Oh?" Chen Qingqing looked at Zhao Feng strangely. "You let your first disciple manage the company for you. Not only the company, but also Cold Immortal School. He is in charge of everything." Zhang Han said with a smile. "You're too comfortable, Brother Han." Chen Qingqing jokingly said, "Zhao Feng, you are too busy working for him. Would you like to work for me? Elder brother Changqing, don't make fun of me. I will always belong to my master." Zhao Feng replied with a smile, but Chen Qingqing knew that he was not joking. "You don't have to say that, you are completely free." Zhang Han shook his head slightly. He didn't want to limit Zhao Feng's or others' lives, and he wouldn't stop them from leaving him one day, but the cohesion of Meng Meng's security was beyond other people's understanding. Mount New Moon was very close to New Moon Bay. About 10 minutes later, they arrived at the foot of Mount New Moon, Cold Immortal School. Chen Qingqing's eyes lit up as he looked at the huge stone gate and the 3 words above. He sighed silently. Brother Han has never changed, only he can come up with such a beautiful name. Brother Han, you live in that castle. Chen Qingqing noticed the beautiful and magnificent castle at the top at the first sight. "Yes, that's our big castle, Uncle King. We usually live on the 3rd floor." Meng Meng mumbled. "Do you want to invite Uncle King to your home?" Chen Qingqing asked with a smile. "Okay, my papa will make you super delicious food, but I'm going to see my good friends Big Hai Hai and Little Hai Hai. Uncle King, you can go to my home yourself," said Meng Meng, hesitating. The 3 adults were all amused by her and burst out laughing. "How can I go to your home alone? You are so lovely. Uncle King will accompany you to see Dai and Little Hai," said Chen Qingqing. "That's good." Meng Meng replied and looked out of the window. Zhao Feng saw this and lowered the car window. Then Meng Meng put out her little head, shouted, "Big Hai Hai, Little Hai Hai, I am back." Her tender and beautiful voice slowly spread out. The whole Mount New Moon suddenly fell into silence. Then 2 cheery roars were heard from the back of the mountain. Ooh, 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 ooh. After Zhao Feng parked the car in the parking space in the front of the castle, Little Hai appeared beside him. When the car stopped, it ran back and forth around the car while sticking out its tongue, wagging its big tail to express its happiness. Dai ran fast to the Thunder Yang tree. Chen Qingqing was shocked by the 2 beasts. Spirit Beast. The 2 spirit beasts are both at the Grand Master stage. How can they still stay in this world? Zhang Han opened the door for Meng Meng, and the little girl jumped out on his own. Zhang Han was worried that Meng Meng would sprain her feet, and was always ready to help her the first time with his soul sense and spiritual force. Fortunately, the 4-year-old girl was very flexible. She jumped out of the car and turned around to take 2 customized puppets in the back seat. One was a black dog, the other was a gorilla, and their appearance was very similar to that of Dai and Little Hai. "Big Hai Hai, Little Hai Hai, look, I've brought you gifts." Meng Meng handed the gifts to them. Little Hai saw this, ran directly to Meng Meng, squatted down, slowly stretched out his head to hold the puppet in its mouth, threw it up, and then caught it. It was so happy. Dai's mouth moved when he saw this. "My second brother is a good actor." Dai also squatted down. but Meng Meng was still too small compared with it, and she could only tiptoe to hand the gift to Dai. Dai took over both Meng Meng and the gift. They began to play throwing high. Ha ha ha. Meng Meng was overjoyed and couldn't stop laughing. Shan Chenking said with emotion, "Brother Han, it seems a bit exaggerated that you have two spirit beasts at Grandmaster stage to play with your daughter. Everyone would be shocked by the scene, including Emperor King. Exaggerated? Not at all." Zhang Han shook his head calmly. "It's not enough. Brother Chenking, you just met my master. You will soon know that the two spirit beasts at Divine Realm stage are not exaggerated at all. I dare to say that if Meng Meng thinks the world is interesting, my master will get the world through conquering it the next day." Zhao Feng said with a smile. He admired Zhang Han so much. Zhang Han was his and the whole Meng Meng security's good example. "I see." Shan Chenking forced to smile. What Zhao Feng said shocked Shan Chenking. Dai and Little Hai were both taught by my master. Zhao Feng said calmly. Shan Chenking was stunned. There were 6 martial art grandmasters, tens of chi strength masters and 2 spirit beasts at grandmaster stage in the security group. It was beyond Shan Chenking's imagination. Then he was told the specific reason. After playing throwing high for a while, Dai put Meng Meng on its shoulder and walked to the back of the mountain. Little Hai and Zhang Han followed it. When they passed by Thunder Yang Tree, Shan Chenking was immediately attracted by the tree, feeling that it was not a normal tree. Which kind of tree could attract him? A high-level cultivator? Is it a divine tree? Shan Chenking asked. Yes. Zhang Han slightly moved his left hand. Swoosh, swoosh. Shan Chenking sensed the chi of divine object. Then he sensed the chi of another divine object on the other side. Thunder Yang Tree and Thunder Yang Flower. 2 kinds? Even Emperor King couldn't believe what he saw. What he didn't expect was that, at the next moment, he again sensed various treasures chi. Then Shan Chenking saw the field where the spiritual herbs grew. He forced a smile. I thought Brother Han would be short of treasures, but I didn't expect that your treasures are many times more than mine. This medicine field is very good. Next time I go back to Beijing, I will bring you good herbs from my grandpa's small medicine field. Zhang Han knew that he wanted to rob his grandfather's things again. Walking under Thunder Yang Tree, Shan Chenking couldn't help jumping on the trunk of it to look down at the whole Mount New Moon. What a great project! He sighed with emotion. If he knew that Zhang Han had made all these in just an hour, he would be shocked again. In fact, there was gaps between different divine objects, also known as 5th stage spirit treasures, but few people in the martial arts world knew that divine objects could also be refined. A very high-end 5th stage spirit treasure like Thunder Yang Tree would get more abilities after being refined, such as the ability of the Thunder Yang Tree to transform territory. Shan Chenking was surprised at all these new things. He hadn't seen what was even more surprising yet. When the 3 adults were sitting and chatting in the pet area, Meng Meng was having fun with Dai and Little Hai. She hadn't seen them for a long time and missed them so much. While Dai and Little Hai are running around Meng Meng, the other dogs who had grown up were following them in a fierce manner. Now Meng Meng looked like a little general taking command of her troops. Little Hai was kinder than Dai. After a while, it swished to Zhang Han's legs, whispered, and rubbed its head against Zhang Han's palm to express its yearning. Zhang Han touched Little Hai's head, and it ran back to play contentedly. Dai felt upset. I can't lose to my second brother, who has taken the initiative to fawn on our master again. So it swung his big ass, sat beside Zhang Han, and put its big head close to him. In fact, it was still taller than Zhang Han even after sitting down. It looked so funny. Zhang Han slapped it twice on the forehead, and it rolled back. Shan Chenking envied Zhang Han so much. It seems that I have to get a spirit beast in the future. They have a good relationship with you. Yes. Zhang Han nodded. In fact, sometimes the people recognized by the spirit beast will accompany them for life. This was a kind of stubbornness, but also a kind of stubbornness that moved their master. Half an hour later, Zhang Han received a call from Xian and said, "Let's go for dinner." Then he stood up, went to Meng Meng, held the little girl in his arms and went to the Thunder Yang tree. "Guess what we will have for dinner?" Zhang Han kissed Meng Meng on her face and let her go. "What do we have for dinner?" Meng Meng asked in reply. "Guess what?" Zhang Han was amused. "Well, I don't know." Meng Meng blinked her big clear eyes and thought for 2 seconds before she raised her head and replied, "Is it a hot pot?" "Yes, it's hot pot." Zhang Han smiled. Zhao Feng, who was following them, knew that if Meng Meng said anything else, Zhang Han would immediately replace her dinner with what she wanted. "Brother Chengqing, the ingredients here are absolutely the best in the world. I'm sure you will like them." Zhao Feng looked at Chen Chengqing with a smile. "I feel that the meat quality of the livestock in the back mountain is pretty good. Only the meat of spirit beasts can have better quality than them." Chen Chengqing shook his head slightly. When they arrived at the restaurant, they saw that many people had already sat down and the soup in the hot pot was heated. The dinner would begin in 10 minutes after Xian came back. They walked all the way to the dining table on the inside side, and all the people passing by greeted them warmly. "The boss is back. Meng Meng is back. Meng Meng, I miss you so much. Han. Zhang Han greeted them one by one until he arrived at his table. Fruit plates and juice were soon served. Meng Meng took the juice from Zhang Han and drank it happily. Chen Chengqing ate slowly and chatted with Zhang Han. The others were all curious about Chen Chengqing, who was known as Emperor King. They felt so proud. "Look, Emperor King is Zhang Han's little brother." When Chen Chengqing picked up a small tomato with a toothpick and put it into his mouth, a clear and sweet voice came from the side. "I am back." It was Xian. Chen Chengqing looked at that direction subconsciously. After smiling at Xian, he withdrew his gaze. All of a sudden, he slightly narrowed his eyes in astonishment. The little tomato, which was handed to his mouth, fell on the table as his fingers quivered. Swish. Chen Chengqing turned his head and stared at the girl beside Xian. His body shook involuntarily. Then he slowly stood up straight. He still remained calm, but Zhang Han saw excitement in his eyes. Chapter 647, If I Become Emperor King in the Future. "What's going on?" Zhang Han furrowed his brows slightly and was surprised. His gaze followed Chen Chengqing and then fell on Zif. Zif is actually Leng Zfai. In an instant, Zhang Han came to that conclusion. He was pretty sure that Zif was Leng Zfai, the one that Chen Chengqing had fallen in love with back then. There were only a handful people that could stir Emperor King's emotions. If Zhang Han hadn't known the history between the two before, he wouldn't jump to that conclusion. But now, the whole thing was obvious to him. From Zif's expression, he knew he had come to the right conclusion. Zif followed Xian and walked very casually towards Chen Chengqing. When she saw him, she was stunned at first, then became a little curious about him. Since this newcomer was sitting next to her brother-in-law, she believed he must be one of his good friends. The following moment, her face changed slightly. "Somehow, I feel like I met him before." All at once, Zif thought of something. She froze on the spot. It was as if she had been petrified by some magic. She looked right into Chen Chengqing's eyes, as if time had stopped. The two kept staring at each other and ignored everything else. This sudden scene gradually made the whole restaurant pipe down. The heavyweights in Hong Kong present, such as Patriarch Luo Shan and Patriarch Chu, all stared at the two with their widened eyes. They didn't say anything, but they were startled deep inside. What's happening? Why is Emperor King staring straight at Zif? Did he fall in love with her at first sight? Impossible. The willpower of a great man like Emperor King must be terribly strong. He is not supposed to behave like this. What on earth is going on? So many questions popped into their mind. They couldn't be more aware that Emperor King was a god state strong, the most powerful warrior at that time. This young god state strong would have a quite promising future. But now a legend like him was staring at Zif blankly and silently. Upon seeing the whole incident, everyone present felt a little confused. But the two involved didn't realize that. Neither of them spoke or moved, they just kept staring at each other blankly. Xian was the second person who realized what happened. After pondering for 2 seconds, she figured out the relationship between Zif and Cheng Chengqing. Exchanging a glance with Zhang Han, she saw the smirk on Zhang Han's face and immediately realized that her speculation was right. Zif is Lengzhi, who was mentioned by Emperor King before. She is the goddess that Emperor King admired so much when he was young. Oh, my god. Xian now recalled the name Lengzhi. She learned it from Zif a few years ago. The latter had used the name Lengzhi before, but Xian did not recall it for a while after several years. Upon the thought, Xian covered her mouth in surprise. Then she quickly stepped aside, walked towards Zhang Han, and left the whole stage to Chen Qingqing and Zuf. After that, the two on the stage were still staring at each other. After another 20 seconds, Zhang Han shook his head helplessly. Why do you have no reaction at all? So he patted Chen Qingqing on the arm and whispered. Man, ask your beauty out and catch up with her. Chen Qingqing came back to his senses, looked at Zhang Han, and grinned. Then he scanned the people present, finally fixed his eyes on Zif, and walked towards her. To be honest, Chen Qingqing's heart was pounding with excitement at that moment. Even though he was a god-state strong and the mighty and famous Emperor King, he still felt nervous and excited in front of Zuf. Moreover, he didn't know how to express his feelings at all. In fact, he truly wanted to hold Zuf in his arms and give her a hug. But he didn't. He was afraid that a sudden hug might be rude and offend this beauty. However, he didn't know that Zif was also longing for his hug. She was wondering if the man in front of her would give her a warm hug. If he did, she would not reject him. From their eye contact just now, both of them actually felt something. Chen Qingqing walked closer to Zif, looked down at her, and greeted in a low voice. Long time no see. Finally, the great excitement in his heart was turned into a simple greeting. Yeah? Zif, who was usually very outgoing, was a little flushed at the time, just like a shy girl. She nodded her head delicately. Gurgle. Chen Qingqing swallowed hard. He did that not because he was attracted by Zif's appearance, but because he was too nervous. Although Chen Qingqing, as Emperor King, had experienced all sorts of trials and tribulations, he was still a greenhorn in terms of a love relationship. Despite his nervousness, he still tried to break the silence. Embarrassed? He suggested gently with a smile, "May I ask you out?" Zif lowered her head and was in a chaotic state of mind, so she didn't hear what Chen Qingqing was saying. Feeling a wave of heat blowing on her face, she blushed, and her heart was beating fast. Oh, it's him. What? What should I do? What should I say? What does he want to tell me? Zif had been on an emotional roller coaster since she recognized Chen Qingqing. After Chen Qingqing finished speaking, he looked down at Zif carefully and awaited her response. 1 second, 2 seconds. And then 10 seconds passed. Ahem, Qingqing. Zhang Han couldn't help reminding again. What are you waiting for? As a man who had had a similar experience, Zhang Han felt anxious upon seeing Qingqing's reaction. It seemed that Zhang Han had forgotten that he had also experienced such embarrassment before. Or maybe, he chose to forget that on purpose. Chen Qingqing's eyes lit up when he heard Zhang Han's reminder. Giving Zif no time to say anything, Chen Qingqing grabbed Zif's hand and quickly walked out. Ah? Zif let out a gentle exclaim, but she didn't refuse him. She followed him and ran out of the room. Under everyone's gaze, the figure of the two quickly disappeared into the night. After they left, there was an uproar. Oh my god, he is so powerful that he succeeded in winning Zif's love so easily? Instructor Liu was completely shocked. They should have known each other before. Leng hesitated. She was a woman, and somehow, she had such a hunch. This feels so dramatic. Zhao Feng shook his head repeatedly and said, life is like a drama. Sometimes, this kind of dramatic scene will happen inadvertently. On the other hand, The seniors like Wang Zanping and the other elders were smiling as they thought the whole thing was actually interesting. They couldn't help but remember of those interesting things that happened when they were young. Oh, my God, it never occurred to me that Fei met our Mr. Right so abruptly. Xian's eyes were shining with excitement. She added happily, I was thinking about setting Fei up someday. Now, all the trouble is solved. Ha ha, she won't be single anymore. Ha ha ha. Zhang Han laughed brightly. Chenking used to be dull. I didn't expect him to have such a story. It's really shocking. While they were chatting, Meng, who was next to them, blinked her big clear eyes and looked around. Finally, she muttered, Papa, when are we going to have dinner? I am hungry. Ah, sorry, the dinner begins now. Zhang Han quickly turned back, and added all kinds of meat, vegetables, prawns to the hot pot. He put aside his curiosity about the story between Chen Qingqing and Zuf. The most important thing for him now was to feed his little princess. So the people sharing the same table with Zhang Han were busy eating their dinner, but the people at the other tables were still in heated discussions. Patriarch Luo Chengwen looked at Luo Shan with confusion. Did you hear what they said just now? Emperor King and Zuf may have had a relationship. Patriarch, I heard that, Luo Shan replied with a nod. Recently, he hung out a lot with Patriarch Luo. The Luo clan had 2 membership cards of the restaurant. Patriarch Luo did not even bring his wife and son, but specially brought Luo Shan here. Thus, it was obvious from this how much the Patriarch cared about Luo Shan. However, Luo Shan knew that his high position in the Luo clan, only second to Patriarch Luo, was all because of Zhang Han. His status had been promoted slowly over the years in the Saint Kindergarten. However, since he received Zhang Han's daughter, Meng as a member of the kindergarten, his promotion became increasingly fast in just a few months, which was even faster than his promotion speed in the past years. Terrifying. Patriarch Luo spat out the word, and then fell silent. He was not alone. Patriarch Chu also shared the same sentiments. Originally, Zhang Han was the big brother of Emperor King. Now, the woman that Emperor King liked was Xian's agent and best friend. In this way, they would be more closely connected. The close relationship between Zhang Han Yang and Emperor King exerted a lot of pressure on those patriarchs. The pressure was too terrifying to withstand by them. On the other side, Chen Qingqing took Zuf's hand and ran out quickly. Of course, they ran at the speed of ordinary people. They ran out of the restaurant, went up all the way, past the castle, and finally came to the Thunder Yang tree. After the long run, Zuf became tired and was gasping. Even Emperor King gasped for a few seconds, not because he was tired, but because he wanted to calm down. Without knowing how to start the conversation, they both looked up at the moon in the sky. The weather tonight was also very pleasant. It was cloudless and the moonlight was gentle, which was perfect for a date. Especially in this beautiful Mount New Moon, the atmosphere was romantic. Phew. After a full minute, Chen Qingqing let out a long breath. He fixed his attention on Zuf, smiled, and said, Back then, I said I was going to look for you. I was planning to spend a few more days with Brother Han, and then find you with my best efforts, but I didn't expect to meet you here. Yes, you. I didn't know that you would suddenly come here. You have not changed much in appearance, but I almost failed to recognize you, Zif replied, biting her lip. Well, it's been more than 10 years since we met last, Chen Qingqing slowly said. Now that the conversation had started, he couldn't hold back anymore. In fact, I have been to where you used to live several times over these years, but I didn't see you. I sent people to find your whereabouts, but they didn't get any useful information. I was determined that I would find you at all costs even if I had to search the whole Hua nation, but now I don't have to do that. The gods have arranged our meeting like this. I want to say thank you to Brother Han. Without him, I wouldn't have met you so soon. Zif was touched by his sincerity. Initially, she had felt bitter and blamed Chen Qingqing for she thought he had broken his promise, but now all the bitter feelings were all gone. As they were chatting, Zif felt much more relaxed. All of a sudden, an idea came to her mind and she decided to play a joke on him. Then she looked right into Chen Qinking's eyes and said sadly, but you showed up too late. What? Hiss. Chen Qiking, who had always been calm and composed, had a sudden change of expression on his face, as if even his heart had stopped beating. But Zif's following words made him let out a sigh of relief. No men chased after me. I've been single for so many years, thus, I don't want to have a boyfriend anymore, Zif said with a smirk. Phew, you are single after all these years? Then, all the men in the world must be blind. Chen Qiking said sentimentally. Xi, you are very beautiful now, so much like the one in my memory. Oh, my name is Zif now, you can call me Fei instead of Xi, which sounds weird, Zif replied. As they just met after so many years, they were both very nervous and excited, but as the conversation went on, their tension dissipated a lot. Although they were excited, they were aware that after such a long time, they would change and both of them needed more time to get a better understanding of each other. Gradually, the conversation between the two became more and more casual, as if they were old friends. Is your name Zif at that time? But you only told me your name was Lengzhi, Chen Qiking asked with confusion. Because the name Lengzhi was given by the senior dean, my adoptive parents changed my name to Zif when we met. Later, my adoptive parents died of illness but they gave me enough money to go to school. They made me feel warm in the world, Zif said sadly. Chen Qiking was silent for a while. After a pause, he added eagerly, don't worry, you'll enjoy a kinder world in the future. Detecting that the atmosphere was a little depressed, Chen Qiking turned his attention to the area behind the mountain where he saw the enticing sea of flowers. The corners of his mouth curved into a smile. He asked, do you still remember my promise at that time? Are you referring to that promise? Zif was slightly startled, and then her eyes lit up. Yes, now, I'm going to fulfill my promise. Chen Qiking looked determined and happy. However, there was a sudden extraordinary change in his aura, as if at the moment, he was the emperor that could dominate the heaven and earth. His eyes were shining brightly. As he raised his hands, he said in a leisurely tone, I promised that if I became the emperor king in the future, I would make a sea of flowers bloom only for you. Swoosh, swoosh. The peach blossoms and chrysanthemums from the sea of flowers flew over one after another. The countless petals slowly lit up like fireflies, or the twinkling stars in the sky. The flowers flying over were suddenly divided into two, then two into four. In short, they were increasing exponentially, gradually. The petals covered the whole area of the Mount New Moon. Zif felt like in a dream. Her eyes gradually dilated when the scene became more attractive. All she could see were petals, bright and beautiful petals. With the movement of Chen Qinking's hands, the petals kept flying towards Zif like butterflies. From afar, one could see that they were surrounded by a huge romantic storm of petals. As he was summoning the petals, Chen Qiking told Zif his innermost thoughts. The reason why my Taoist name is called Emperor King is because of you. And also because of that promise. There is Emperor King in this world. This is a unique name I created because of you. At this point, the flying petals in the sky gathered again and finally became a moderate garland. He gently put it on Zif's head and said, I know that after so many years, we may change, but my feelings for you will never change. Now I hope we can get to know each other again. You won't refuse me, will you? I. Lost in a daze, Zif stumbled over her words. It was safe to say that if Chen Qiking was experienced, she would agree even if he kissed her now. What Zif worried most was that people would change. Thus, Chen Qinking's words got rid of her worry and even made her feel warm. By the way, Chen Qiking suddenly asked, I'm more powerful than Zhang Han now, and you're Xian's agent. Due to our relationship, I can make you live a queen-like life at will. Are you willing to accept my help? Zif was taken aback and soon realized his meaning. Without hesitation, She shook her head and said, "No, I am not. I have to be Yan's agent. But being an agent is hard. Despite your hard work, the result may be fruitless. Zif's mind became much clearer. She stepped back a little bit and questioned, "Aren't you the brother of my brother-in-law? Why did you say that?" "Yes, I'm Han's brother." Shan Wangzhang breathed a sigh of relief. "We grew up together. Just now, your thoughts were a little messy, so I asked you that and wanted to know your innermost thoughts. Well, what I want to say is, according to his usual character, he would not confess too much, but now, he poured out all his thoughts. I want you to be my girlfriend, but I don't want anything to affect the relationship between you and my sister-in-law, as well as me and brother Han." "Oh?" Zif was not pleased to hear that. "What? Do you think I'm a gold digger now? You and Han are good brothers. I and Yan are also good friends." "No, no, no, that's not what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" I just want you to know more about my thoughts." "So, you still have that thought?" "No, I didn't. I just wanted to know you more." "Look, you are still thinking like that." I just lost my mind. Please forgive me." Even though he was the mighty emperor king, in the face of the woman he loved, he became a helpless man. Looking at Shan Wangzhang, who was at a loss and almost broke out in a cold sweat, Zif burst out laughing. I am impressed after you've just done such romantic things in our first meeting, but you spoiled it so quickly. Compared with my brother-in-law, you still have a lot to learn." I don't have any experience." Shan Wangzhang smiled with obvious embarrassment on his face. "All right, I didn't mean to blame you. I know what you're thinking. We haven't seen each other for so long, so at least we should get to know each other. And, I am telling you, I enjoy being single. If you want to be my boyfriend, you have to be superior to your other competitors." Zif grumbled. "Didn't you just say that no one was going after you?" "Huh? I mean there's no one trying so hard to go after me. In the future, there won't be anyone who dares to go after you, because I'll fight them off." Shan Wangzhang's words seemed naive, but that was his true meaning. Actually, he didn't have to take any action. As long as his competitors knew his name, they would give in at once. When Zif heard his words, she couldn't help laughing. Just at that moment, the sound of dogs came into their ears. Howl, howl, howl. HFFFFF. The two slowly looked up, only to find that Dai, standing on the branch of the Thunder Yang tree, was clapping its hands with a smile, and little Hai was looking at them. The two were watching us all this time? Chapter 648. Instructor Liu is beaten up again. Dai, little Hai, what are you doing here? Go back now. With her left hand on her hip, Zif pointed at the two spiritual beasts with her right hand. Woof, whoosh. Little Hai shouted and jumped down in an instant. It ran around the two and then quickly darted to the pet area. It wanted to leave a long time ago. After all, no one was happy to be the third wheel. Dai sat on the tree and looked down at the two, its eyes rolling fast. Woof, woof. It howled to catch the attention of the two. Dai gave a thumbs-up gesture with its two paws, then, it clenched its left paw, and stretched out an index finger. Then, it held an empty fist with its right paw and put the left index finger in it. After that, it took the index finger out and put it in again and again. After it repeated such actions 5 or 6 times, Shan Wangzhang's face darkened, while Zif's face turned red in an instant, like a ripe apple. It was rare to see Zif's shyness. Dai, get out of here now. Woof, woof, woof. Dai ignored the warning, barked a few times, then clapped its paws and laughed. However, the next moment, it stopped laughing abruptly. Bam! Shan Wangzhang slapped it with his right hand, and its body flew out and fell on the lawn more than 20 meters away from the two. Woof! Dai turned its head and grinned at Shan Wangzhang. It knew that he was not a man to be trifled with, so it just stuck out its middle finger and walked slowly to the pet area while swaying its big ass. Shan Wangzhang was both amused and annoyed. That pet is just. They are Meng Meng's playmates and always stay by Meng Meng's side. Nobody else can order them to do anything as they're particularly loyal to Meng Meng, Zif explained as she stroked the bangs on her forehead. Shan Chenking kept his eyes on Zif without a word. He could faintly make out her appearance that year. It was just that she looked even more beautiful now. Although she didn't look as stunning as Xian, Shan Chenking still loved her. Just as Shan Chenking wanted to say something, he heard some noise. Gurgle. Zif's stomach grumbled. Obviously, she was hungry. Shan Chenking was stunned for a few seconds. Then, he apologized. Sorry, I was too involved in our conversation and forgot that you haven't had dinner yet. Let's go back for dinner first. All right. Zif nodded. I'm really hungry. Let's go. The hot pot will be eaten up soon. The food here is very delicious. I bet you won't be willing to leave here after dining here a few more times. Now that both you and Brother Han are here, I don't doubt that. Shan Chenking smiled. You call him Brother Han all the time. It seems that he is very important to you. Did you grow up together? Zif asked curiously. Shan Chenking shook his head slightly. No, I started hanging out with Brother Han only when I was in the 6th grade of primary school. You know what, I could always have big meals when hanging out with him. Later, our relationship got better and better, and I felt like he was my own brother. I thought that I could help Brother Han have a better life when I entered the martial arts world and finished my cultivation in seclusion. Unexpectedly, Brother Han is still Brother Han. Alas, he doesn't need my help at all, so I still follow him and enjoyed the big meals. This kind of relationship makes me feel more comfortable. In short, I like to hang out with him. Whoa, what a coincidence. My relationship with Sister Yan is also super good, Zif added happily. That's good. I was a little excited before and tentatively asked you such a question. I meant no harm. I just followed my own heart and hope you don't mind. All right, don't worry. I have a very good relationship with Sister Yan and her husband. To put it bluntly, you are an outsider now, so, stop nagging me, Zif said in a relaxed and casual tone. Once she felt relaxed, she would be easygoing. Shan Chenking appreciated this part of her character. In fact, this was related to Shan Chenking's life experiences in his youth. Before the age of 7, his character was formed. He was a little dull and weak, and he didn't like to talk much. Only the popular kid, Zhang Han, gave him a sense of security. Yes. Shan Chenking nodded with a smile. How long have you worked as Xian's agent? Well, 10 years. I have been her agent since she made her first debut 10 years ago, Zif said casually. With Brother Han's personality, he should have done many romantic things, right? Shan Chenking said, full of smiles in his eyes. Didn't he tell you about that? No, he didn't. How could you not know? That time when fireworks lit up the whole New Moon Bay was even on the news. He even prepared a love song, balloons and petals. Yan was so stunned back then. Zif was in high spirits. Speaking of the topic, when they got to know each other, his living conditions were very poor. Moreover, he had a bad temper and was very stubborn, which irritated Yan so much. But then, Meng Meng spent a few days with him. Guess what happened? He came to Hong Kong and lived in a 5-star hotel. At the beginning, he was like a stone that had no feelings for Yan and only treated Meng Meng well. But later he seemed to realize his true feelings for Yan and did a lot of super romantic things for her. Really? Shan Chenking was stunned and then burst out laughing. That's because he didn't care at first. Shan Chenking made that comment because he and Zhang Han knew each other very well. As Shan Chenking and Zif walked to the restaurant, they were talking about Zhang Han, Xian, and Meng Meng. This was a topic that both of them were familiar with, so they both felt comfortable to talk about it. After some time, they would gradually be more familiar with each other and have more common topics. Of course, Zhang Han would help them. As soon as the two reached the door of the restaurant, they saw Zhang Han and his family walking out. Why did you get back so quickly? TSK, Xian grumbled with a smile, with deep meaning in her eyes. Catching Xian's meaning, Zif became a little embarrassed. I arranged a dining hall for you two at the 5th floor of the castle. You two can have a quiet dinner there, Zhang Han added. All right. Shan Wangzhang nodded. So the group of people walked into the castle, seeing the decoration inside. Shan Wangzhang kept nodding approvingly. Wow, very magnificent, generous, Brother Han. The castle should have been built according to your plan, right? As for the exquisite decorations, I bet it should have been arranged by Yan, Shan Wangzhang said firmly. But then, he heard a crisp denial. No. The little fellow Meng was unhappy. She raised her head, looked at Shan Wangzhang and pouted. It's done by me, Papa and Mama. Oh, right, Meng. You also made contribution. You're really good at decorating. Shan Wangzhang comforted the little girl at once. Yes. The little fellow nodded seriously. I was there, although I was held by Papa. The group walked to the 5th floor. There was no elevator. The stairs looked grand, gently sloping and longer than the usual ones. The 5th floor was also a cylindrical building. When they arrived at the hall, a candle-lit dinner had been prepared on the table, and 2 pieces of Kobe steak, which were much larger than the usual ones, were placed neatly. However, Zif was not happy with the arrangement. Why give me a piece of steak only? It's not enough at all, Zif protested. Don't worry, later, they will serve some side dishes and spaghetti, Xian replied instantly. What a foodie! Xian exclaimed in her mind. In fact, Zif was not the kind of person who would easily change her mind. The reason why she changed her attitude towards Zhang Han so quickly was not only because Zhang Han was outstanding in all aspects, but also because the food cooked by Zhang Han had completely conquered Zif's stomach. It was out of expectations that the food there was very attractive to a foodie like Zif. There was even a news report that several young men did 2 part-time jobs a day in order to have the egg fried rice at Meng's recreational restaurant. It could be said that Meng's recreational restaurant was well known across the whole of Hong Kong. When people talked about the Meng Group, they would always say that it was one of the biggest enterprises in Hong Kong, and the background of its founder was very mysterious and strong. It was rumored that an enterprise tried to suppress Meng Group. As soon the news was leaked from inside, a dozen high-level groups in Hong Kong, including the Luo clan and the other 2 major clans and families, took action to suppress the enterprise together. Within just 1 day, the enterprise declared bankruptcy. Only then did people realize the transcendent status of Meng Group in Hong Kong. The group could be as influential and authoritative as the emperor. They even knew that officials of the government departments would be very cordial when conducting their regular checks on the group. Gradually, Meng Group became more well known. Those with higher identities all kept in contact with Meng's security group. They knew what the 5 Tiger General represented, and the 100% completion rate of their missions. Those with higher status knew many more details about the group. It was not hard to imagine how powerful Zhang Han Yang's people were. However, only a small number of people knew and attached great importance to the arrival of Emperor King. Obviously, his arrival meant his alliance with Zhang Han. Even Patriarch Luo and the others, who were just about to leave after dinner, caught a glimpse of Emperor King and Zuf, who were at the 5th floor restaurant of the castle. I don't know when we will have the privilege to dine there. If that happens, it will be a proud boast for many years. Those spectators discussed with longing in their eyes. Then, they took their car and left the Cold Mortal School slowly. Meng Group was famous, but the Cold Mortal School was even more famous in the upper-class society. Anyone who went there would be the heavyweights of all circles. Many middle-level clans had spent a huge amount of money to buy the lottery draw quotas of the restaurant. Those clans who won the lottery draw could have dinner at the school's restaurant, and during their dinner time, they even won the chances to cooperate with some large clans. Thus, many people envied those who won such chances. They all made up their mind to buy a membership card of the restaurant no matter the cost next time. At the restaurant on the 5th floor of the castle, taking a sip of wine from time to time, Shan Wangzhang and Zif chatted with each other. Their topics gradually changed to the things that had happened to them over the years. They were still in high spirits when it came to 10 at night. However, aware that Meng Meng's bedtime was around the corner, Zif proposed ending the conversation. After the two walked out of the restaurant, they saw Zhao Feng sitting there and immersed in his mobile phone. He was actually making an appointment with Liang Mengkai. It's still early for bed, nightlife had just begun, and the two of them just established their love relationship. Of course, they need to spend more time together. Finished your dinner? Zhao Feng stood up and asked, Brother King, I'll take you to your accommodation, next to Zif and Lilai's villa. Really? That's great, thank you. Shan Wangzhang was in a good mood. He looked at Zif and suggested, I secretly took some tea from my grandfather. I gave some to Brother Han, and kept some for myself. Would you like to have some tea now? Shan Wangzhang didn't tell his grandfather, because he took too much tea from his grandfather. He felt that his grandfather might not give him that much, so he took it secretly. It turned out Shan Wangzhang's guess was right. When the warlord of Chan clan went back to his hut and looked at his almost empty tea box, he was so angry that he trembled for a minute. Well. Zif looked at her watch and hesitated. All right, but I don't have much time. Tomorrow, Yan and I have to go to work. Recently, we received too many cooperation proposals. After our careful selection, we chose some good ones. We have to check them one by one and compare them. I see. Shan Wangzhang nodded, and the three of them went downstairs. When they reached the third floor, Shan Wangzhang didn't stop to greet as he knew Meng Meng and her parents should have fallen asleep. So they left the castle without a stop. Zhang Han, Xian and Meng Meng were lying in bed, listening to Zhang Han's bedtime story. The other two soon fell asleep. Zhang Han was lying in between them, while Xian placed her slender legs on his. Meng Meng's little head was leaning on Zhang Han's chest, and her small palm was put on it. She felt at ease with her arms around her father. Therefore, Zhang Han kept that gesture all night. He could stay still like this for 1 year, let alone a night. After his family was in a sound sleep, Zhang Han began cultivating the clouds in his soul sense sea, just as he did every day. The 4,000 clouds were stretched to their limit. When they retracted again, each cloud would grow a decimillimeter larger. That was a hardly visible improvement. However, as the saying went, a long journey can be covered only by taking one step at a time. Making progress every day was very encouraging. Meanwhile, Zhang Han found that the thunderbolt wandering in the clouds was constantly flashing and its energy fluctuations were getting stronger and stronger. The T-wood thunder was growing increasingly stronger as well. It's a pity that it doesn't have a soul until now. Everything had its soul, including a human being, grass, wood and even a thunderbolt. It didn't mean that everything had to have its own consciousness, but it meant a kind of intelligence. A thing without intelligence was like being dead. If there was a trace of intelligence, its power would increase by a great extent. Moreover, the real T-wood thunder required intelligence as well. For example, when a warrior was passing the thunder tribulation, the thunder only aimed at you. If others weren't too close, then they wouldn't be affected by the thunder. This was one of the functions of intelligence. However, this was one of Zhang Han's fantasies. He could only come by it with luck but not by searching for it. After breaking through to the innateness level, I'll try my best to transform the clouds into 10,000. Then, I can enter the worldlet safely. After Zhang Han finished cultivating, he had more considerations about his further cultivation. With regard to his current life's cultivation, the starting point was far beyond his own expectations. After having a good time to consider all the recent matters, Zhang Han also went to rest. It was not yet 11 o'clock, and Star Moon Bar was just opened. The atmosphere in the bar was very lively, dancing along with the heavy metal music. Many people expressed their wildness and pressure. Whoa, 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 let's cheer up. Following the rhythm of the DJ, Instructor Liu shook his body and raised his hands among a group of people on the side of the corridor. Zhao Feng and Liang Mengkai were sitting at the table in the back. While Zhang Li and Liang Hao were next to them, the others also went to the dance floor after a while, as they were not willing to be third wheels. Instructor Liu. Who came to the dancing floor with Liu Jiren. Seeing Instructor Liu, he laughed and teased, "I heard that you were beaten so hard in Shangjing that you couldn't take care of yourself." Bullshit. Instructor Liu glared at him. "Who said that? When did I get beaten? Oh, just knock it off." Liu Jiren snorted, "We all knew that you flirted with a beautiful woman, but the rim of your eyes were beaten black and blue by her. It's definitely not like that." Instructor Liu curled his lips and hummed, "Who leaked the news? If I find out who the leaker is, I'll teach him a good lesson." Then, Instructor Liu became serious and began to make up his own version. "I am telling you that the news spreading around is wrong. In fact, I let her win on purpose. I can't be serious in any fight with women." Hearing those words, Hu and Liu Jiren were stunned and looked at Instructor Liu in confusion. Then, as if he had realized something, Hu winked his eyes twice. However, Instructor Liu was still in his feverish speech. "What's more, that woman Jiang can never defeat me. I just wanted her to give me a massage. Her strength was just right and I felt very comfortable. Later, she accidentally touched my eye sockets. It was just a misunderstanding. If you don't believe me, let's wait and see. The next time I see her, I will beat her up if she dares to challenge me." When he was about to finish speaking, Instructor Liu suddenly felt a hot wave coming from his back, and his buttocks seemed to be a little hot. Instructor Liu realized something in an instant and slowly turned his head. Then he saw the woman in leather with a murderous look on her face. Oh, my God! Instructor Liu looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His expression was stiff and his eyes gradually widened. 2 seconds later, he forced a smile and waved his hand. "Hi, what a coincidence to see you here, Captain Jiang." "Really?" Jiang Yanlan's eyes narrowed again. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Zhao Feng took Liang Menkai, Liang Hao took Zhang Li, Hu took Liu Jiren, and several members of the security group around all retreated quickly. They had to run as they heard the 2 words Captain Jiang clearly from Instructor Liu. Also, they saw that Instructor Liu was in a panic. Phew. Zhao Feng felt that if Jiang Yanlan lost her temper, she would tear this place down. They'd better get out of there and leave enough space for Jiang Yanlan to beat Instructor Liu up. "Well, Captain Jiang, please don't misunderstand." Under Instructor Liu's gaze, Jiang Yanlan's fist was getting closer and closer to his eye socket. Before he could finish his words, he screamed painfully. Ugh! The sound even overwhelmed the DJ's music. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Many people nearby turned their heads instantly and looked over. They found Instructor Liu was being kicked so hard by a beauty in leather. "There's a fight. Oh, my God, she created a disturbance in the Star Moon Bar. Is she tired of living or what?" Wait. Suddenly, many people were taken aback. Brother Feng, Brother Hu, and Xuyong are all watching the fight from afar. What's going on? Oh, my God. Does that woman actually have a strong background? She kicked Instructor Liu here, but security just sat back and watched. Even many members of the security group were stunned for a while, seeing Instructor Liu being beaten. They gathered around to offer help. However, Zhao Feng and other insiders motioned them not to meddle in. At the same time, he explained to them, "Don't panic, everyone, it's our internal affair." Hearing his explanation, many people realized what was happening and stared at Instructor Liu's and Jiang Yanlan's back with a different mood. It turned out that they are a couple. The husband must be goofing around and was caught by his wife on the spot. Gosh, but the husband is being beaten so violently. Hiss. Such a beautiful woman could be so brutal. Oh, my God, how dare the man goof around with other women after having such a girlfriend? For a moment, people were in an uproar. Obviously, they misunderstood the situation. But when Jiang Yanlan heard the gossip around, she started beating Instructor Liu even harder. As a result, Instructor Liu's screams became even louder. Then, the surrounding discussions became louder than ever. The ensuing moment, the poor instructor Liu was being beaten harder and screamed more painfully. It seemed the whole thing formed a weird cycle. Chapter 649, to select the proper script. The news that Jiang Yanlan beat up instructor Liu soon spread around like wildfire. Everyone who heard the news couldn't be more stunned. Most of the members of the Meng security group, as well as those subordinates of instructor Liu, who once belonged to the Wolfhead detachment, were petrified. She is so merciless. In fact, a few of them had wanted to stop Jiang Yanlan, yet, when they heard Brother Feng's words, they understood that there was something fishy about the incident. Fishy? Thinking of instructor Liu's carefree character, the audience had their own speculation about the incident. But few of them knew that the seemingly harmless woman in leather in front of them was actually a master at the peak of the Grand Master realm, who could tear down the bar in an instant. Ah, instructor, it's all due to your bad luck. Zhao Feng looked at instructor Liu and winced. Without any doubt, with Jiang Yanlan's strength, instructor Liu would definitely be in severe pain. For a master like her, her accurate application in her strength could be said to have reached the pinnacle. The strength she exerted on instructor Liu made him feel agony, but it only left a minor injury on his body. In fact, Jiang Yanlan had pulled her punches. After all, instructor Liu was one of 5 tiger generals from Meng's security group. More or less, she had to show some respect to Zhang Han. If instructor Liu had known Jiang Yanlan's thought, he would definitely complain. You're beating me up like this, are you sure you are showing respect to my boss? Cut the crap, I just don't buy it. At table 17 of the bar, Sun Dongying, who was a regular guest of the bar, was showing a live broadcast of the fight. When the camera showed a close-up of instructor Liu being beaten for about 2 minutes, the audience watching the broadcast had increased by tens of thousands. From the introduction clip, the netizens saw a picture of a beauty in leather hitting someone, and they all clicked on the video out of curiosity. Gosh! Do you know the one on the ground? Sun Dongying stood on the sofa and exclaimed while shooting. That's the well-known instructor Liu. He's actually very powerful, but now he is being pushed to the ground and bullied by a woman. What explosive news! I've never seen the beauty who is beating him. Even Brother Feng said that it's an internal affair. FCK, maybe the two did have an affair. Bullet screen, what happened between the two? Why is the man being beaten so hard? Gradually, the uproar in the area affected the entire bar. Every guest in the bar was staring at the two, instructor Liu's loud screams filling their ears. This poor man is being trampled underfoot. After a full 3 minutes, Jiang Yanlan stopped the beating. She swung her ponytail, smugly looked at instructor Liu who was snorting and threatened, "Now I guess you dare not show off in front of me next time. Also, if you say something bad about me behind my back, I'll beat you up too, mind your language." Ouch! Instructor Liu's eyes narrowed because he couldn't open his eyes. He stood up and ran more than 10 meters away from Jiang Yanlan. Then he turned back and said, "Wait and see. There will come a day when I will press you to the ground and kick your ass." Hardly had he finished speaking, that he escaped at lightning speed. He planned to go back and use some medicinal herbs for his injuries. Jiang Yanlan furrowed. Just as instructor Liu reached the entrance, she launched a palm attack against him. What? She can attack others from a distance? The audience gasped. Bam! Instructor Liu's injured buttock was kicked hard again. He was sent flying for more than 10 meters and collapsed to the ground. Ouch, damn it. Instructor Liu stood up, glanced at the back door angrily, and fled away as fast as he could. Jiang Yanlan ran to the table by the side with satisfaction. The dancing floor gradually returned to its normal state, noisy and exciting. The next day, Instructor Liu was full of vigor again, and his bruised eye socket returned to normal. After all, he had so many spiritual herbs to cure his injuries. With so many herbs, he could endure Jiang Yanlan's 8 or 10 brutal strikes. Nevertheless, he felt the demon Jiang Yanlan was a great challenge and threat to him. He was a man not easily defeated. Getting beaten up? It's not a big deal. No matter how strong she is, I'll treat her as a breeze blowing in the hills. No matter how violent she is, I'll treat her as the bright moon shining over the great river. I will never lose to anyone in my life. I'll let you beat me up a few times first, and then I'll take revenge. Deep in his mind, Instructor Liu was full of ambition, but nobody knew what would happen next. At 7 o'clock the next morning, Zhang Han prepared a big breakfast in person. Then, he called Chen Chengqing and Zif and invited them to have breakfast at the restaurant on the 3rd floor. As the hostess, Ziyan politely asked Chen Chengqing, "Did you have a good rest?" "Yeah, thank you for asking. I feel that this place is much more comfortable than Red Leaf Mountain." Chen Chengqing smiled. "The air here is fresh and the scenery is pleasant, like a paradise. It's the paradise that Papa built specially for me." Meng Meng reminded him. "Oh, I see." Chen Chengqing nodded. Only then did Meng Meng continue her breakfast in small bites. After breakfast, Zif and Ziyan went downstairs, got into the limited edition Bugatti, and left. When the car arrived at the foot of the mountain, there were two cars, Mercedes-Benz S600, driving at its front and back. Zif was used to such an escort and drove at a steady pace. The car in front was always driven by Leng Yi. Among the 6 women in the security group, except for Leng Yi, the other 5 had mediocre qualifications. The one with a better qualification was a Heaven Stage Master, and the other 4 were all Earth Stage Masters. The most famous members of the security group were the 5 Tiger Generals, Zhao Feng, Xuyong, Elder Meng, Instructor Liu, and Ah Hu. Each of them had achieved outstanding feats. When they carried out various tasks, their enemies would always be intimidated by their great fighting power. But Leng Yi, like a ghost in the darkness, seemed to be an ordinary person and had no sense of existence. She had carried out a total of 3 tasks quietly, yet, to the very few people who knew her, her fighting power was also very strong and terrifying. Because she was female, she always silently followed and protected Ziyan, so most people did not know her. Ziyan and Zif chatted along the way. Ziyan was very curious about the relationship between Emperor King and Zif. When she asked Zif about the details, she would always ask questions that made Zif blush. After all, Ziyan had experience in a love relationship. After chatting for more than 10 minutes, they arrived at the company, which put an end to their chit-chat. They went upstairs and began sorting out those companies that were willing to cooperate. Basically, they chose some film companies. Many of them wanted to invite Ziyan to be the heroine of their films. Those companies showed their humble attitude, and they listed all kinds of budget, specific scripts and schedules in their contracts. Of course, most of them were local companies in Hong Kong. They all knew that the details in their contracts were not business secrets at all. The Purple Moon Entertainment Company might not have any interest in reading the scripts carefully. The top priority of those companies was to build connections with Ziyan and her husband, while the film or television show was only their second priority. If Ziyan was not interested in the scripts, they would be happy to change them or even the directors. As a result, the contracts in Ziyan's office were piled like a small mountain even after the first round screening. Thus, to sort out the ideal contracts and partners was not easy. While Ziyan and Zuf were busy with their work, Zhang Han and Chen Chengqing were drinking tea quietly in the mountain at the back of the castle. Wang Jian, whom Zhang Han hadn't seen for a long time, also joined them. After such a long time, Wang Jian didn't dare to be so casual with Zhang Han anymore. The huge gap between their status was like a natural chasm that separated them apart, although Zhang Han still treated him like before. Wang Jian would be careful with his words when he spoke. An adult's world was complicated like this. Children's worlds were much simpler. Meng Meng and her good friend Wang Yihan were having fun together. After Ziyan left for work, Meng Meng muttered to Zhang Han, "I want to play with Yihan." Zhang Han would do anything to meet his daughter's needs. Thus, he gave a call to Wang Jian at once. Wang Jian had been busy with his work, yet, when he heard Zhang Han's invitation, he thought, well, Screw my job. He left his company, went straight home and took his daughter Wang Yihan to the castle. Back then, Brother Han, when we were still young, we also naively played in the mud. Chen Qingqing looked at the little girls and said with a smile. While drinking the tasty tea, Wang Juin learned that the man next to his boss was his old friend. I didn't do that back then, obviously, only you did. Zhang Han was amused. He denied Chen Qingqing's words. That's right, back then, I was a little introverted and didn't play with you yet, Chen Qingqing replied with a nod. Well, your journey in cultivation just began, Qingqing, you still have a long way to go before you grow into a powerful master, Zhang Han reminded. If Qingqing's King Dragon Blood's bloodline could be transformed into the Bone Dragon's bloodline, then the attribute of his energy would no longer be singular and he would definitely become a strong master passing tribulation. Got it. I'll have a promising future as long as we work together. Chen Qingqing grinned. Their conversation made Wang Juin feel stunned. Unsurprisingly, with boss's promotion, his friend will have rapid improvement in his career. But he didn't have the slightest idea that his boss was actually not as powerful as his friend. Boss, boss. A sudden cry from behind interrupted Wang Juin's thought. When he turned around, he saw Instructor Liu who was rushing over quickly. What's the matter? Zhang Han asked. I was beaten by Jiang Yanlan again, Instructor Liu grumbled with a sad face. Did you mean Captain Jiang? Chen Qingqing was stunned for a moment before he shook his head. The gap between you two is too wide, so I am not surprised at all, Zhang Han replied with a knowing smile. Boss, please teach me a few moves to protect myself. I was beaten up in public. I just can't bear the humiliation. Even if I can't beat her, at least I should be able to protect myself. Instructor Liu pleaded. That's impossible. Chen Qingqing shook his head. How can a Grand Master at the early stage resist the attacks of a Grand Master at the peak stage? However, after thinking for a while, Zhang Han nodded and said, there are several moves available. One of them is more suitable for you, but are you sure you want to learn it? He then looked at Instructor Liu, as if he was reminding him of something. Even if you resist, it will only last a few seconds. Won't she make more effort to kick you after that? Zhang Han thought. Yes, I can't be surer. Instructor Liu's eyes lit up. Even if it means that I'll be beaten harder later, I still have to fight back. All right. Zhang Han nodded and his eyes lit up slightly. Then, somehow, Instructor Liu felt a few strange moves suddenly appeared in his mind. The moves used the borrowed force from opponents and had tricky attacking angles. Zhang Han estimated that with these moves, Instructor Liu should be able to catch Jiang Yanlan off guard. Whoa, thank you, boss. I'm going to practice them now. Instructor Liu laughed and ran back to his place happily. Wang Juin was dumbfounded by what he witnessed just now. What was happening? Instructor Liu came and asked for something. Then he nodded and left. I feel so weird. Is the boss so powerful that he can pass on martial arts through the air now? As for the martial arts world, Wang Juin was still a little confused and did not quite understand it. Fortunately, Zhang Han and Chen Qingqing just had some chit-chat about family affairs later. This time, Wang Juin indirectly cut in a few words to express his existence. Wang Yihan didn't leave until she finished her big lunch. The afternoon passed quickly. At 6 o'clock, Xian and Zif came back, and they partied after dinner. Zif and Chen Qingqing went for a walk on the beach. Zhang Han and his family still came to the mountain at the back of the castle. Meng Meng wouldn't just sit there quietly, she was there playing football with Dai and Little Hai. Honey, I've been reading scripts for a whole day and I'm a little dizzy now. Xian bit her red lips and said, would you like to check them for me? I don't even know which one to choose. Okay, I'd love to. Then I'll get my laptop. The several selected ones are in the USB flash drive. Xian smiled. When she was about to stand up to get her laptop, Zhang Han grabbed her by the waist. You don't have to get it by yourself. Zhang Han showed off again. As he moved his palm, the window of the third-floor bedroom was opened, and the silver-white MacBook flew over. When the laptop arrived at the stone table, it was already powered on. "You did save me a lot of trouble," Xian said with a wry smile. Then she took out a pink USB from her bag and connected to the laptop. She opened one of the folders, in which there were 10 subfolders with different titles. A total of 10 scripts were selected, including 2 modern romantic idol shows, 3 ancient costume shows, 2 police and gangster movies, 1 comedy, 1 inspirational and youth show, and 1 dramatic show. Xian introduced. "Oh, okay, let me have a look." Zhang Han casually clicked open the first folder, glanced at the script rapidly, and began to make comments. "The first romantic idol show is not good, forget it. The opening remarks are so disgusting. The second one is not good either, it's too melodramatic. These 3 ancient costume shows are just so-so, there's nothing special about them. The 2 police and gangster dramas are exactly the same as those that have been broadcast, they're not special at all." Looking at the scripts with unfamiliar names, Zhang Han knew that even if they were made to movies, they would probably be badly received. "This comedy is good, but it's not suitable for you as you're not a comedian." He finally found a script with a much more familiar name, but it didn't seem quite suitable for his wife. The inspirational and youth show and this drama are profound with good stories, but there's nothing special about them. We need to check another batch of scripts. In the end, Zhang Han gave his own opinion. Xian felt both amused and a little annoyed. "According to your standards, none of the shows are qualified. But I'm telling the truth, you will join the red carpet show this year. At least you need to have 1 good movie. Besides, my wife's movie must be a classic movie." As Zhang Han expressed his opinions, he did not forget to flatter his wife. It was obvious that Xian enjoyed that very much. With a somewhat overjoyed expression, she smiled and rolled her eyes at Zhang Han, saying, "You're really good at flattery. Do you have some ulterior intention in the evening? How did you know?" Seeing the beauty's expression, Zhang Han was a little turned on. Seeing her husband's eagerness, Xian bit her red lips, which looked like a blooming flower, and then shook her head. "Let's get down to business. As these 10 scripts are not good, we'll check a new batch tomorrow. Yet, the quality may be similar. Sometimes, the script doesn't look so good, but the way it's shot will make it better. Acting skills are very important." "That's right." Zhang Han nodded and suddenly something popped into his mind. He then remembered that when he came back, he found that there was a little difference in the world due to the absence of some stars and their masterpieces. Zhang Han happened to know some of them. After pondering for a while, Zhang Han had a bold idea. "How about I write a script?" "You write the script?" Xian was stunned. Are you also a plagiarist?" "To be more specific, I'm the one who makes the classics reappear in the world," Zhang Han explained. "All right, then, what kind of script do you want to write?" Xian's curiosity was piqued at once. After a moment of pause, Zhang Han replied, "Well, I can only write an outline of the story. As for the details, I'll ask someone else to complete. There are a lot of professionals in our company." Xian blinked beautiful big eyes, getting close to Zhang Han. "After you finish it, please let me see it first, or you can tell me the storyline. I'll write it first." Zhang Han had a careful thought for another 5 seconds. After that, he built a new folder in Xian's USB flash drive. The name of the folder was a little longer, and the last few words had been covered. Xian, however, could see them clearly from Zhang Han's typing. The folder was named Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Chapter 650, Parents Meeting. Xian felt that it was strange when she saw the name. She stopped asking when she saw Zhang Han's fingers dancing at high speed on the keyboard. Just standing by and watching Zhang Han quietly made her very happy. If you ask me how it feels to have a super husband, the most important thing is that there are fewer things for me to worry about. Xian was soon attracted by the story. Is this a madman's story? He is not mad, but wild. He's a captain, a pirate leader, a story in which villains play the leading role. Zhang Han was typing very fast, but often paused to reflect on the story. There weren't many films and TV plays that impressed him, but he could still remember several famous Hollywood series, such as Transformers, Resident Evil with Alice as the heroine, X-Men and so on. However, only Pirates of the Caribbean had never appeared in this world. They happened to live in Hong Kong that was close to the sea, and it would be much easier to make pirate-themed movies. However, Zhang Han could only retell this story, but he didn't know how to shoot at all, and his idea of the movie was very simple. But for a person like Zhang Han, it was just a matter of expressing one idea. Countless professionals would soon come up with the best plan for him. With Zhang Han's recollection, the outline of the story became clear in his mind, and his typing speed became faster and faster. With Zhang Han's great memory, the outline of the story became clear in his mind, and his typing was speeding up. Why are you so quick? Wait for me. Okay, I see. Zhang Han took a glance at Xian, who was looking at the screen with earnest attention. Zhang Han smiled and slowed down. In this way, Zhang Han spent 1 hour completing the outline of the whole story. When Zhang Han finished typing, Xian asked him in confusion, "Why do you stop? Are these the contents of the first movie? Is this a series?" "Yes." Zhang Han nodded, "I only watched the first 3 movies, and then I didn't pay attention to the series. But the 3 are enough." Zhang Han replied, Xian's eyes were shining with happiness. She stood up, went to Zhang Han's back and massaged Zhang Han's shoulders. While doing this, she said in a delicate voice, "You worked so hard, sweetheart." She leaned over Zhang Han's side and kissed him. Zhang Han took the opportunity to extend his hands backward, press them on her hips, and lift her up to his back. At the same time, he said softly, "Any rewards?" "What reward do you want, rascal?" Xian poked Zhang Han's face with her fingers. "You guess." Zhang Han asked. "HMPH." Xian replied with a soft hum. Of course, she was willing to give this reward. While they were talking, Meng ran back. "Papa, Mama, I'm tired, I want juice." Meng jumped onto Zhang Han's thighs. Dai followed Meng. Ooh 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 ooh. Though it wanted to lie on Zhang Han's thighs, Dai dared not to do so, considering its giant body. It gave up on this idea. Zhang Han took a glance at Dai and smiled. If Dai grew up a little bit more, it could play the leading role of King Kong directly. How great is its acting skill? Dad's going to squeeze juice for you. Zhang Han touched Meng's head. Then he stood up, with a notebook in one hand and Meng's palm in the other, and walked to the castle. Xian happily followed them at a brisk pace. She was overjoyed. Dai and Little Hai walked with them to the Thunder Yang tree, and then returned to the pet area. Ooh! At the command of Dai, Little Hai jumped forward like a black shadow and soon came back with a Hungarian sheep pig in its mouth. The pig was from a new batch purchased by Pearson, and it was smaller than ordinary pigs. Not only these, Pearson had introduced new species of chicken, duck, goose and fish to Mount New Moon, and they were all rare and precious food materials. Now Pearson was a foodstuff buyer, shopping crazily all over the world. They didn't lack money. After returning to the castle, Xian and Meng sat on a round sofa on the first floor. Zhang Han went to squeeze 2 cups of watermelon juice. Seeing Zhang Han return, Meng put down the toy in her hand, took the juice and drank it. Xian took a big sip, and then handed the juice to Zhang Han. "I'll call Fei to read the script, she must like it, then I'll discuss other matters with her and tell Uncle Sun to arrange the task tomorrow." "Okay." Zhang Han nodded. Xian quickly picked up her mobile phone and dialed Zuf's number. "Where are you, Fei? Zhang Han wrote a script for me, come to the castle and check it." Within 5 minutes after she hung up, Zuf and Chen Chenking walked into the castle quickly. "Where is it?" Zuf rushed to Xian's side and asked excitedly. "Here you are, read it first." Xian handed the laptop to Zuf. The document was not closed. Zif took the laptop, put it on her lap, and then sat on the sofa to read it carefully. Soon, Zif was attracted and began to enjoy it as a story. Shan Chengqing shook his hand and smiled at Zhang Han. Brother Han, when we went for a walk here, Fei and I found that your land is already the top treasure land in Hua Nation. The spiritual qi here is stronger than that in my Mount Red Leaf. He couldn't help feeling excited, because it was so amazing for Zhang Han to create a blessed region himself. In addition, there were two kinds of divine objects in this area, as Shan Chengqing could imagine. There must be plenty of martial arts resources for the security group and the Wang family. It was even like an embryonic form of a large sect. If Brother Han founded a sect, I'll be at least a protector, no, elder. This was what Shan Chengqing thought. Hearing Shan Chengqing's words, Zhang Han shook his head slightly without saying anything. Mount New Moon had become a treasure place, not only for the divine objects, but also for the crystal ore hidden in the mountain. If the ore was known by the others, Zhang Han was afraid that many large sects would come to make trouble here. By the way, was it you who made the 100 formation image that Elder Wang is studying in the back mountain? Asked Shan Chengqing. Yes. Zhang Han nodded and then explained before Shan Chengqing could ask more question. Not only arrays, but I am also good at alchemy. That's great. Shan Chengqing's eyes lit up. My grandfather has a lot of martial arts resources, and I'll bring more for you next time. Zhang Han didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. In ancient China, the daughter married to another family was regarded as water being splashed out. Zhang Han felt as if Shan Chengqing had married into his family. Zhang Han knew that Shan Chengqing was unwilling to leave the mountain as long as Zif was here. In Zhang Han's opinion, the relationship between the two had developed very smoothly. After all, they had a deep friendship foundation. But there was still some time before they became true lovers. While they were chatting, suddenly a cry came from their side. It was Zif, who slapped her thigh and cried out, "Is this written by you, brother-in-law? You are amazing." Ziyan smiled. Zhang Han was amused and nodded his head, waiting for Zif's praise. However, how much will this cost? Zif's eyes widened as she asked. The story is splendid, but it's too difficult to make a movie based on it. Only the top special effects teams in Hollywood can undertake such post-production, but the cost will be high. I've read your notes, and the scenes are so grand. Nothing serious. Zhang Han comforted her. Do it at any cost as long as Ziyan likes it. That's what you said. Don't blame me if you lose money then. Zif's eyes brightened. This was the first time she had been involved in a film like this. She felt so excited that she had goosebumps all over. Knowing that Zif was nervous, Zhang Han replied, "You can do it without worry. It doesn't matter to me to lose billions." Many people online would scold Zhang Han if they heard his words. But if they knew that Zhang Han was the boss of Meng Group worth nearly 10 billion yuan, they would probably take this as a famous saying. Seeing this, Ziyan couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh because she knew Zhang Han well. How could he possibly lose money on the things he brought out? Out of her understanding of Zhang Han, Ziyan knew that this series of films would definitely be recognized by the market. Since she decided to do it, Zif began to ask some professional questions. There are some details that you didn't write about. The buildings are older, and the rifles, right? But what era are you talking about? We need to know the elemental style of that era in order to build such buildings. Era? Zhang Han was really stunned this time. I don't know. Ah, you don't know what you wrote? Zif was confused. Well, I'll ask Uncle Sun to find me a historian. The second question. Zif began raising questions. The details she asked were almost unknown to Zhang Han. He had made great effort to recall the plot, and he couldn't remember the details as clearly as the producer or the director. Zif decided to fix all these problems tomorrow. After finishing their work, they began to talk. Then they played with Meng until 9 o'clock in the evening. Shan Chengqing and Zif planned to go to Star Moon Bar. Meng, we should go to bed. Zhang Han checked the time and decided to have a good rest. In the bedroom on the third floor, Meng fell asleep after Zhang Han told the story in his deep voice for 20 minutes. Then he heard Xian coughing. Xian blushed shyly. She got up, took something out of the wardrobe, and then went out of the door. "Come to me in a few minutes." Xian's charming eyes tickled Zhang Han. 3 minutes later, Zhang Han got out of bed and quickly went to the second bedroom. The next day, Xian opened her eyes lazily at 8:30 in the morning. She sat up and found that neither the father or the daughter were in the room. "It's 8:30. Xian pouted. "I got up too late, it's all his fault." She left the bed and went out of the bedroom to see Zhang Han and Meng playing with toys in the hall. "You are awake? Wash up and have breakfast." "Okay." Xian nodded and went to wash her face. She was relieved to see Zhang Han and Meng at home. When they finished their breakfast, it was already after 9. Zif had gone to the company. Zhang Han drove Meng and Xian to the company and accompanied Xian to go upstairs. After seeing them, Zif, who was busy with her works, kept on tutting. Xian blushed again. When they were about to work, Zhang Han left the company with Meng in his arms and went to the Disney resort Meng liked very much. The parents' meeting would be held the next day, and school would start the day after tomorrow. Therefore, Zhang Han played with Meng all day. Meng would never feel bored in the amusement park. She had been laughing all day. Meng's laughter made Zhang Han feel better, and he even laughed from time to time. This was a very special feeling caused by the company of Meng. He did his best to take care of Meng and make her happy, which made him happy from the bottom of his heart. He received an unparalleled sense of satisfaction. For Meng, her father's company might only make her feel happy and proud, but it was undeniable that after contacting Zhang Han, Meng had been changing in a good direction. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the father and daughter returned to Cold Immortal School and played in the back mountain for a while. When Xian came back, they had dinner together. In the evening, Zhang Han and Xian had a discussion to try to keep the company's work in order. They planned to leave Xian at home tomorrow morning to look after Meng, and Zhang Han would go to the parents' meeting. Xian and Meng wouldn't get up so early in this way. Therefore, Zhang Han and Xian took the opportunity to do something romantic this evening. At about 8 o'clock the next morning, the family of 3 finished their breakfast. Dad is going to attend the parents' meeting, play with Mum at home. Zhang Han waved his hand before leaving home. "Goodbye, Papa, remember to come back early." Meng said, "Okay." Zhang Han smiled at Xian and went out of the door. Then he got into his panda car. It took him half an hour to drive to the gate of St. Kindergarten. Both sides of the gate were full of cars at this time. Though only the parents' meeting for junior classes was held in the morning, the number of parents was still relatively large. It was almost the same as when Meng went to school. The parents standing in the field were divided into 2 rows, waiting to go to class together at 10 o'clock. "You are back." Luxang stood in the gate of the school, took a broom and said hello to Zhang Han. "Hello, Master Lu seems to be in good spirits." Zhang Han looked at Luxang in confusion, finding that the aged man had made a lot of progress in martial arts from the chi he revealed. "I'm lucky. I went abroad with my granddaughter, where I received a good opportunity." Luxang smiled. "That should be what you were meant to get." Zhang Han nodded slightly. Fate was very interesting, and no martial artist knew when treasure would appear in front of him or her. "Well, I can't say any more. I have to sweep the floor, the leaders are coming." Luxang's eyes slightly narrowed, seeing all the high-level managers such as Liu Shan coming from the gate. He walked to the other side as quickly as he could. Zhang Han was amused by the aged man and shook his head. Luxang liked Lugo so much that he was willing to be a real cleaner in the school. If Liu Shan knew his strength, he might appoint Lugo as the head of kindergarten without hesitation. "Mr. Zhang." Liu Shan changed direction to say hello to Zhang Han, and then kept going into the school, which showed his respect for Zhang Han. After greeting Luo Shan, Zhang Han went to join the parents of Class 5. Many parents took the initiative to say hello to Zhang Han, especially Li Kai, Li Mun's father and real estate businessman, who were very enthusiastic. At the same time, he was very respectful to Zhang Han. Now he knew how incredible Zhang Han's background was as the owner of Meng Meng's recreational restaurant. As the prominent boss of Meng Meng Group, Zhang Han had been running the humble restaurant, which made Li Kai admire him very much. I can't understand the happiness of a successful man. Li Kai sighed with emotion. Children were the common topic of all parents. They talked for a while and the time for the parents' meeting came. Parents, please follow me to class. Lugo clapped her hands. Then she took the lead into the classroom. All the adults sat down in silence, waiting for the start of the parents' meeting. Standing on the platform, Lugo looked forward with a smile and said, "Happy New Year to all parents and your children, wishing all of your angels happy growth." The simple opening words won her applause. When the applause stopped, Lugo took out a notebook, looked at it and said, "The parents' meeting was to be held at the end of last semester, but it was postponed to today because the school had to urgently reconstruct some venues. You may also see that the swimming pool and the playground with lawn have been reconstructed on the right, as well as the teaching building with piano, art and other professional classrooms. We hope to cultivate children's interests more attentively. First of all, let me summarize the study of last semester. The reward of the class is the little red flower. Children who get more than 15 little red flowers will get a trophy. Every child has a chance to get the little red flower, but only 7 of them got the trophies in the last semester. Zhang Yuman was the best one, who got 18 little red flowers in a semester. Her parents are willing to cooperate with us, and this kind of education is believed to be very beneficial to the growth of children. Good. Li Kai, the flatterer, cheered in a low voice, and then took the lead to clap his hands vigorously. Martin's mother, Wang Jian and the others follow him to applaud. Gradually, everyone in the classroom was clapping. There were also many exclamations. Zhang Yuman, is she that cute little girl? God, she got 18 little red flowers. It's marvelous. Teacher Lu is very strict and it can't be fake. My children only got 14 flowers, but Teacher Lu refused to give him one more and help him get a trophy. The children with 14 flowers are among the best. My naughty son only got 4. A man in the back seat was silent. You can still show off. My son only got 1 flower. Comparison was the most common in society, and getting more than others would make many people feel happy. Therefore, everyone in the classroom was looking at Zhang Han with admiration. At least, he was the best one in educating his daughter among them. The applause from the other parents made Zhang Han smile proudly. But it was not because of the flattery. The applause was won by Meng Meng. This was Meng Meng's honor. Zhang Han was happy because of this.